want to thank everybody for coming to this March 12th, 2024 City Council meeting. This public meeting of the City Council is recorded on Zoom with a link that is posted on the agenda. If you're calling in on the phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or a device, there is a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. If technical difficulties arise and the Zoom link is interrupted during an in-person hybrid meeting of the City Council and a quorum is present, the meeting may continue after efforts have been made to reestablish the link. The minutes shall note the interruption. It is the finding of the City of Gloucester that no individual should be denied equal treatment or opportunity because of their age, ancestral, color, disability, including intellectual or developmental, mental disabilities, family status, immigration status, gender identity or expression, military status, marital status, national origin, race, religion, sex, or sexual orientations. I'd like to announce tonight that we have Councilor Frank Majota, we have Councilor Nolan, we have Councilor Gilman, Councilor Grow, Councilor Grace, Councilor Worthley, and Councilor Memhard. We have our CAO, Jill Cahill, is also present on Zoom. And we have our City Clerk, Joanne Sanos, and our Assistant Clerk, Grace Furrier. And Chief Eric Smith from the Gloucester Fire Department. Please. So our next order of business is going to be the flag salute and then a moment of silence. The moment of silence tonight will be for our CFO, John Dunn, and they'll be led by Councilor Memhard, the Chair of Budget and Finance. So if we could all raise, and Frank, if you could lead us off in the flag salute. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John Dunn. I miss John Dunn. A lot of us in Gloucester miss John Dunn. We all owe him a great gratitude and thanks. John served the City of Gloucester as our treasurer and CFO for 10 years, since 2014 until just last week, when he sadly succumbed to cancer at the age of 71. It's still John's signature on our city tax bills and utility bills, so he's living on that way. John was recruited from Beverly by Mayor Carolyn Kirk and continued to serve Gloucester with Mayors Safathio Romeo-Thakin and Greg Verga. I was privileged to work with John for 9 years with the Budget and Finance Committee, among all other city councilors, our CFOs, and the steady oversight of our auditor, Kenny Costa. John was a calm, resourceful, conservative, and clever as he wisely steered our course for Gloucester's financial chart into the future through many shoals and challenges, with his firm, knowledgeable hand on our city's wheel of income and expense, contracts, conjuring up his wonderful projections of navigating debt and long-term obligations. Under John, Gloucester's books were in good order. During budget season and year-end reconciliations of department budgets, I often imagine John Dunn as our very own financial wizard, not unlike Professor Albus Dumbledore, waving his powerful magic wand to conjure up funds where needed. As a person, John was serious, humble, and level-headed, but he also had a wry smile and a bright twinkle in his eye. I like to think of John now, rosy-cheeked sunglasses on, the top of his sporty convertible down and open, with a sunny breeze in his face as he drives into life's beautiful sunset. God rest you, John Donne.
I'd like to ask if Counselor Gilman would like to add.
So just like to continue with our tribute to John Donne. In loving memory of John Donne, October 14th, 1952 to March 4th, 2024. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand with a shamrock. John Donne, I worked with him for 9 years. He was a remarkable man. He was fun, he was serious, he would tell it like it is. He was a man of few words. He did so much for our city. He was always here late at night. He was always on our calls. Sometimes his dog would sit on his lap during Zoom time. Sometimes we'd see him leaving in his really cool white BMW with the top down, and we'd tease him that we must pay you enough, and we knew that we didn't because because we just loved everything about John. So I just want to join the words of Council Memard, who worked the most with him, being on BNF for all those years, but also on behalf of his family, thank them for giving us so much of John during these years. And his wife tonight at the wake couldn't have been more lovely about how much Gloucester meant to John, and got to meet all his grandkids and his kids, and he's got a special family right now that's hurting. I just join this tribute to John tonight and thank him for all his great work for our city. We'll miss him.
Thank you, Counselor Grow.
Just want to echo what the other counselor said, and I've only known him personally for 2 years, but like Scott said, I think his signature, I've known for, my whole life with the utility bills, and once I got the house and all that fun stuff, they always kept coming, and I see his signature all the time, Mr. John Donne. So I'm going to miss you. Thank you.
Counselor Worthley.
Yes, I couldn't possibly do better tributes than the other councilors who've gone before me on this, but I'll just like to add, I've known John Dunn for a long time, and obviously the last 2.5 years, 2 years plus. I think people, who see the invoices and the bills, that's one part of it. He had a great sense of humor, a very dry sense of humor. Even though he was a man of few words, he would have a quirk here or there that just was really helpful and clever. He was very conservative with our budget, and I think that there's some values that we should always just keep in mind to honor his legacies, to just sort of always be thoughtful about the long-term impact of every decision we make. And I think someone said recently, what would John do, right? WWJD, like what would John do? And I think that's probably the best way we can honor his legacy, is to keep some of those financial practices in mind as we move forward. So he will definitely be missed. Thank you for that.
Counselor Grace.
Sad that I didn't have the opportunity to know him, being the newest one here. But I've heard nothing but wonderful things about him, and, I wish him Godspeed.
I'll say that working with John for the last 8 years, a lot of the things that we have gotten done wouldn't have been possible without him. His institutional knowledge of municipal finance has brought us in a lot of directions with creativity to help citizens looking to work with issues such as betterment stuff. A wonderful person, always had time for a call, and definitely put the city first in his life, and I'm truly going to miss him. I'd like to ask if our clerk would like to have a moment.
Yes, I worked with John Dunn closely with finance and signing contracts and whatever needed to be signed. He was a gentleman, and no matter how busy he was, he took the time to explain things to us. He will be missed, and I am glad that I was able to work with him during his time here.
Excellent, thank you. Would the CAO like to have a few words?
Thank you, Council President. I don't really have any words to say. I'm going to miss John very deeply. He was a mentor to me, and can't imagine my career with the city without him. So we'll miss you, John.
Excellent. Thank you, Jill. So if we could have that moment of silence, that'd be excellent for a great man. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so next up, we have oral communication. The public shall have the opportunity at every regular scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not apparent on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow any resident and/or property owner and/or business owner who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the city council. Make their statement without debate, and the city council will refer matters to the office of the mayor. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each, and Councilor Grow will be the timekeeper tonight. First up, I see we have Joel Favaza.
Can you hear me? Yep. Do I need to be this far back? May I approach so we have a conversation? Hi, guys. For the record, yeah, no, I thought that would, I figured I would get stopped. For the record, my name is Joel Favaza. I'm a resident of 28 Middle Street. I am a current Capital Improvement Advisory Board member, but I am not speaking in that capacity. I am a former school committee member, and they didn't let me speak on their behalf when I was on the committee. I promise you they would not have me here speaking on their behalf tonight. I am speaking, however, as a local business owner, a homeowner, a graduate of the Gloucester Public Schools, and the father to 3, soon to be 4, current Gloucester Public School students. And I have a very small ask tonight. I'm simply asking this council request Mayor Verga appoint an ad hoc Cape Ann Regional School Consolidation Commission charged with confirming the advisability and the feasibility of consolidating the Gloucester Public School System and the Rockport Public School System. And if it is confirmed feasible and advisable, to have that commission proceed with initiating and/or facilitating the process necessary to bring that to fruition. And so I know what most of you are thinking. Joel, that is genius. But in case there are any doubters among you, I'll speak really quickly why we need a separate commission and why we need this consolidation. The commission's pretty simple. For those of you who have been on the school committee or simply serving on the city council, you know these positions take enough energy and time just to keep the system you have going. To ask the school administration or the school committee to also plan for an entirely new school district that requires consolidating 2 existing ones on top of all their other tasks would be unfair and unreasonable to expect them to be able to do it. As for why we need the consolidation, it's both an opportunity and a necessity. And so right off the bat, I'm going to save the city of Gloucester $100 million. That's the estimated price tag to combine Plum Cove and Beaman School. And the school committee back in 2015, 2016 voted that that was going to happen after East Vets. East Vets is done, so now we got that on the horizon. If we consolidate with Rockport, the Rockport campus has enough space that between West Parish, East Vets, and the Rockport campus, we can house all K through 5. Actually, we can probably house all pre-K through 5, which means we can get our preschool students out of the industrial park where they're sandwiched between marijuana factories and Varian and actually get them into a school ground, right? Then you go, okay, well, Joel, if you're going to put everybody, all the K through 5, from Beaman and Plum Cove, et cetera, toward the Rockport campus, what about the Rockport middle and high school students? What are you going to do with them? Well, 20 years ago, GHS had about over 1,300 students, and they started off this year with less than 800. 20 years ago, O'Malley had 950 students, and they were down to about 625 this year. So you could take every Rockport Middle School student, drop an O'Malley tomorrow, and you'd have a 14% reduction in population still. Take every RHS students out of Rockport High School, put them into Gloucester, you're down 22%. Both those schools are fresh or renovated, don't need money to welcome those students. The last bullet points I'm going to hit are Rockport needs this as bad, if not more than we do. They have been living on overrides to pass their school budgets. Thank you. And then they were supposed to go from a middle and high school separate to a middle and high school combined next year. They had to do it mid-year because they couldn't make it to the end of this year to do it. And I've heard reports between 8 and 12 positions were just laid off mid-year this year. So they need it as badly as we do, if not more. And there are other districts in the region looking at them. They are the smallest school district in the state. There are Cape Cod communities with larger school districts than Rockport. It makes great sense. I'm done now. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to that commission being appointed. Thank you very much.
Jeff, can you?
Your computer
I thought I muted.
in your.
How are you doing tonight? You just give your name and address for the record?
Microphone.
Hello, my name is Gail Goodue, and I live at 25 Ferry Street in Gloucester. I thank you for the opportunity for this very important issue I'm bringing forth. I am here to the regards of the safety of the Dorothy Talbot O'Malley rink. As you can imagine, many grandparents and other family members come to enjoy watching the children at the rink. My concerns are you have to go down the bleachers to find seating. We have no railings, and the steps are very, very steep. It is extremely difficult for the majority of people to navigate going up and down them. Falling is dangerous and a liability to the city. Many have mobility issues and are only able to sit at the first two bleachers or stand at the top of the rink. Please take this into consideration and install much-needed railings to enable all to enjoy the activities at the rink. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else here tonight looking to speak for oral communications? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the computer. We have Patty Amaral.
Hello,
Hey, Patty, if you could just give your name and address for the record.
Patty Emerald, 14 Myrtle Square.
How
Hi,
you
I'd
doing
like to
tonight?
talk about our playgrounds for the 100th time. Oh my goodness, I'm getting old as I talk about it. Our playgrounds need some of that money that is flowing into the city from the COVID, the opera money. I mean, let's get real. We need to have a Park and Recreation Commission. You have 5 people. It's a wonderful thing. You have it in your charter. You have 5 people one from each ward. Then you have ex officio from the DPW. Doesn't cost a lot of money. Person could still be on the clock. I'm not sure why we don't do this. So our parks are bad. Does anyone in the audience or anyone on the city council go to our parks and playgrounds? Do they go and see the deterioration? You can't just let it fall apart and then say, we're going to build new. The taxpayers can't handle that continuously. Some of these things are simple fixes, and yet time after time after time, I'm up here talking about it. I just don't understand why this can't be fixed. And I don't understand why I don't see anyone's faces either. That's kind of weird. I'm just seeing my name. So, because I'm not sure what your reaction is to my words, and that kind of makes me feel strange in a public meeting. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there. I just ran in the door. And I'm also very, very concerned about the fact that we are going to fold in Magnolia Woods, Dogtown, and Stagefoot Park advisory committees into the open space. I sent Jeff Worthley videos of the open space meeting where everyone there seems to be concerned about this. And yet there was a meeting, I guess, that everyone voted on something. I'm not sure, because it's just oblivious to some things that happen in our city. And this can't happen because, number one, they have money. and they have projects that haven't been finished. Like I'm pretty sure the cannons, there's a walkway at up at not stage 4, at the gardens. I don't know how much money Dogtown has, but open space never had any money. And I know this because I sat on it for like, what, 10, 11 years. I'm not sure how much volunteer time I gave to open space, but I really enjoyed the people I worked with on that board, really hardworking volunteers. You know, something has to be done. We can't wait for a person, like Joel says, he has children. People
10
have
seconds.
children. So please, please take some of that money. I think it was talked about at the campaign that playgrounds were going to be an issue, something that the mayor was going to work on. Let's please work on it. I'm getting older by the minute. Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night,
Thank you, Patty.
everybody.
Take care. Do we have anybody else that'd like to speak under oral communications? Beverly Palmachi.
Beverly Palmachi, 8 Commonwealth Avenue. I understand that with the recent high tide, there was flooding at the high school and near the water treatment plant. And I was under the impression that the berms and the corrugated metal sheets and whatnot that were installed at great expense was going to control the flooding. I know nothing about this, just what I've been told. I went to a town green meeting where fellow, presumably very knowledgeable fellow from Harvard University talked about it, and I asked him if this was a proven method that stopped flooding, because it sounded a little odd to me that this could actually stop the flooding. And he he assured me that it was. He high-fived Mia Verga, who was right there, who had introduced him, I believe. So maybe Mia Verga can answer this, or maybe somebody can answer this. Why did we have flooding if the berms and the corrugated sheets are in place? I think probably more than myself would like to know, because what's going to happen in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Do we have anybody else that'd like to speak under oral comment? All right, seeing none, I'd like to close oral communications. The next order of business is, Madam Clerk.
The next order of business is the confirmation of new appointments. The Board of Health, Erin George, term to expire 2/15/27.
Councilor Majota.
Committee recommendation on a motion by Council Grace, second by Council Gross. The Ordinance and Administration Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appoint Erin George to the Board of Health, term ending 2/15/27, and I so move.
Second.
Erin, how you doing tonight? Would you like to come up and address the council? You just tell us a little bit about yourself for the full council, that'd be excellent.
I am hoping folks can hear me. So my name is Erin George. I am nearly a lifelong resident of Gloucester, besides college and a year in Danvers when I couldn't find a place here in town. I currently work over at Action Inc. and my background is as a social worker and exclusively work right now in housing. In speaking with the new director, Dominique Curley, I was so impressed with her vision of the department. I know there's been some transitions in the department, and I'm excited for her vision and what she's looking forward to doing. It was a lot of leveraging community relationships and kind of creating some coalition building as the city to be more of a funneler of resources to local community entities. I work over at Action and have been able to see the work of so many members of that department, like their inspectional services and stuff, and have been really impressed. And as a resident of Gloucester, I would like to give back to my community, being here for so many years. I feel like I need to do my part, and this seemed like a great fit. So in talking to Dominique, and I also had the ability to talk to Joe Rosa with his leadership of the Board of Health, and it seemed like it would be a great fit. I think with my background in social work, the social determinants of health, for those who are unhoused are extremely important. I think with that lens, I'll be able to offer maybe a new perspective to the board and kind of a voice in that sense. So I'm really excited and had the opportunity to hear from the folks at O&A and get asked a few questions. So I'm really excited about it.
Excellent. Our CAO, Jill Cahill, would you like to comment on this?
Sorry, I was just, I totally lost connection there for a minute, but thank you, Aaron, for stepping up. I believe Joe Rosa, our Chair of the Board of Health, is present, and we just want to thank Aaron. She's perfectly qualified, and we're thrilled to add some gender diversity to the board and looking forward to what she brings.
Excellent. Thank you, Jill. Are there any members of the council that would like to ask any questions? Councilor Grow.
Can we get two of you?
We'll see. I'm a big personality to handle, so I'm sure they will have enough with one. And I'm excited to be a part of the board with the great work that they're doing and be of whatever support I can. So.
Excellent. Any other questions, have any council? I just want to say again that how excited I am to have someone with a social work background being on the Board of Health, not just with your work that you do with housing, but how can you work with the individual that may need housing or be having problems maintaining housing. And I think it's very special to have someone like you, Aaron, on this committee, and I totally support you. Oh, yeah, definitely. Questions or comments?
Thank you. Aaron, we haven't had a chance to meet yet. I'm thrilled that you're coming on board, and I'm excited the mayor's appointed you. As you know, the Board of Health has its statutory authority, not through the city of Gloucester, but through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And even though there is a need for cooperation and some synergy, you're joining a board that has authority that goes beyond just what the mayor or the council or the city wants. And I trust and appreciate how much we're putting trust in you to do this with your members and with Joe Rosa here to do as well. The work that they've done has been remarkable. The department has some challenges over the years, and even though the staff are city employees, they also work for the Board of Health and have some independence there, and I welcome your thoughts. I love that you have a social background, social worker background. Claudia Schweitzer, who has retired from the Board of Health after, I've lost track of how many decades, maybe 22, 23 years, I think. It's big shoes to fill, but I appreciate that you acknowledge you have a big personality and will do your best to fill that. Thank you for joining us.
Other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I'll call the roll. Nope.
We're all here.
Oh, that's right, we are. So this would be all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
Thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your night.
So the ayes pass, 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Next on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Is there any councils that wish to pull any matters off the consent agenda? Councilor Gilman.
I'd like to remove City Council 2024-009 Gilman, amend the GZO section 1.11.5, vote of the City Council, subsection D, required majority from the consent agenda.
Anybody else? So I'd like to move to accept the consent agenda as amended. If
Second.
ready. So then those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it, 7 in favor, 2 absent, and I'll turn this over to Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Council President. I've been advised by the city clerk that my Council Order 2024-003 affects the entire city and,
Oh, and
April
okay, I'm sorry.
409.
I've advised this by the city clerk that my Council Order 2024-009 affects the entire city. And given that notice to all the butters in the city in this situation is impracticable, I move that the city council waive the notice to abutters under GZO section 1.11.4B regarding 2024-009 Gilman, and that the council is asked to amend the zoning ordinance accordingly to set the public hearing for April 23rd, 2024, and to refer the matter to the Planning and Development Committee and the Planning Board, and I so move.
Second.
Alrighty, all those in
Wait,
favor?
Point of order. Sorry.
Oh, this is will.
Yeah, point of order before we get to this point. Are we voting right now to waive notification? We can't vote on anything that's presented before us the first time unless we declare a state of emergency, and this certainly isn't a state of emergency. So we'd have to put it on a future agenda. It's an important piece, but
That's correct.
we
That's-
can't vote on the waiver, right, at this point without a 2-week, or actually,
No,
48
that's
hours.
not. May I?
We've done this all the time. You pull it off the
Well, if you've
consent
done it all the
agenda.
time, you've done it wrong all the time.
No,
We
no,
can't
no.
vote on any matter that comes before us for the first time. That's
Wait.
just like oral communications. We can't address things that come before us for the first time.
Waiving, you're just waiving, you have to waive notice to the abutters the first time it appears when you pull it off the agenda.
I read it before the public hearing. Okay, so
Well, we're setting the public hearing for April 23rd.
after the Plan Development Committee,
Yes, we have to refer this to planning board and to P&D. So if you don't waive notice to the abutters and set the public hearing and refer this to planning board, then they can't move forward on it.
just thought we didn't take that vote before we have the public hearing. And we can't, I just don't know that we've ever voted on anything the first time it appears before us unless we declare a state of emergency.
We've always done this, Counselor. This has been always our practice as recommended by our attorney.
Not always, in the time that you've been here, but
Well, 9 years.
yeah, the 20
Okay.
years ago, I served,
Okay.
we didn't do that.
And the issue here is that we are in realization that, how many households are there? 16,000 households?
I'm not disputing the merits of
Point of
the
order?
waiving.
Okay.
The point of order.
Point of
I'm
order?
not-
Bro,
My comment,
Would you please allow the counselor to finish their statement before interrupting?
Sorry, I wasn't interrupting. She was interrupting the point of order that I
Point
made.
of order.
What Robert's rule of order am I violating?
Council Worthley, could you please let Councilor Gilman finish?
She wants to advocate for the issue, fine, but that's not, my point is simply on a procedural thing. Can we vote on something before it comes before us for the first time? That's the only question. That's the only point of order I've made.
this is a referral, per the chair, may I speak?
You may.
Right now, what we are doing is we're simply referring this to standing committee. And because it's impracticable to spend the amount of money, which is about $20,000, Joanne, to the 16,000 houses, this is our opportunity to waive sending notices out. And all we're doing right now is we are stating that we are going to be referring this to planning board and then P&D, and we've stated the times. It will still be advertised in the newspaper, and we are doing nothing short of following our normal protocol. So I ask that we move vote this by.
I believe that we've been doing this in the entirety that I've been here, and this has come up before with 2 different city solicitors. And it's been clarified to me that this is a standard practice, that before we get to where we need to be, we need to establish that we're not going to send out a $7 letter to every house in the city of Gloucester and spend, it's actually probably more than $20,000 at this point for this, to make this happen. So this is advance notice to people that we're going to waive the notifications and move on with sending it to committee for review.
I have no objection to waiving the $7 charge per house. That's not what I'm discussing here. I think that is in order. I'm just questioning the timing of us taking a vote on something that's appeared before us literally within the last 5 minutes. Right? We get things, posted, and we have, we don't vote on anything unless we declare an emergency. But if that's the way we're going to do it, I'm okay with the waiving. I just don't know that we can take votes on things that haven't appeared before us before.
I'd like to call the roll for the vote, please.
Okay.
I'd like to explain.
You're not voting on the matter. You're voting on the referral and waiving the notice instead and the public hearing in accordance with that section.
We're taking a vote to waive the notification.
Yes,
That's a vote.
according to 111(4)B. And then in that section, you have to set the public hearing, okay? And then you're voting for the referral, too.
All right, so we are going to do a roll. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Counselor Majota,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor Worthley.
No.
Counselor Benson is absent. Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Grace, and Counselor Gross is absent, and Counselor Grow.
Yes.
The motion passes 6 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 absent.
All right, and the next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is the unanimous consent calendar.
I'd like to move to accept the unanimous consent agenda calendar.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion passes 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Thank you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is the Budget and Finance Standing Committee report of March 7th.
Council Memhard, do you have enough mints and water for what you have to do tonight?
This is the easy part to start here tonight. We have 2 matters. The first is a fairly straightforward one from the fire department, and the second one is a little longer, involving city policy regarding surplus funding and allocating those to various reserve funds. So the first item is a memorandum from our fire chief, Eric Smith, requesting our acceptance of fiscal year 2024 Mass DFS Fire Safety Equipment Grant in the amount of $12,266. And the recommendation on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley, Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council accept a state grant under Mass General Law 4453A, a fiscal year 2024 firefighter safety equipment grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Department of Fire Services, in the amount of $12,200.66. And this is for the purpose of purchasing a handheld thermal imager. The grant period is through June 30th, 2024, and there is no local match for this grant, and I so move.
Second.
All righty. Chief Smith is on the line. Would he like to add to any of this?
Yeah, good evening, Council. This particular grant that the state put forward, we just really like to thank Senator Tarr and Representative Ferrante. They go out of their way every year to push funding for these particular grant opportunities, which, you know, it's not a lot of money, but it's very helpful. These things are pretty expensive devices, and it adds up, and every dollar that we can get from another source is one less, you know, city dollar that can be used for something else. So it is certainly helpful. The imagers that we have are nearing end of service life. We have a rotation and replacement plan in place. This will actually fund about 2.5 of those. Because we're buying basically the same equipment, we're going to get almost 50% off on the replacement by turning in the old ones for the new ones and bringing them up to the current NFPA standards. So it's a good move for the city. Most of the cost is getting covered by the state, which is excellent. So we're just happy to be able to do it.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief Smith. Is there any councilor questions or comments on this? All right, hearing none. This is a simple voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So the ayes have it, 7 in favor, 2 absent. Next order of business, Councilman Hart.
The next item is a memorandum for our city auditor regarding notification of free cash, and a memorandum from the Assistant CFO regarding the allocation of the July 1st, 2023 general fund free cash. And before I start, I didn't know if CAO Jill Cahill would like to just describe the policies that we've adopted in the city through the administration regarding free cash allocations and the planning behind that.
Sure, and through you, Mr. President, to the council, sorry, my camera's not on. It got a little emotional during the John thing, so I'd prefer not to turn it on tonight, if that's okay. So in honor, right? No, not just in honor of John, but one of the things that previous administration under Mayor Safatio or Mayor Taken's leadership, Jim Destino and John Dunn, they put together very sound financial policy to build up our stabilization funds. Because of that, we're in a position as we embark on what is up to a $200 million wastewater treatment plant upgrade. We actually have some stabilization funds to lean on. So Mayor Verga feels strongly to continue with those. You can see the breakdown in your packet, the order in which they go. The other two new things that this mayor has introduced, Mayor Verga has introduced, is one, in his first year of his first term, we agreed to put all short-term rental tax collections into the Affordable Housing Trust. Under John Dunn's leadership, he recommended that we do that at the time of certifying free cash. So you'll see that in front of you as well. And then the new one to this year is related to setting up the opioid abatement settlement funds. There was guidance given to Kenny. I don't know if he's on tonight. He can give you any details about it. Between the auditor and the CFO received guidance from the state on how that fund could be set up. There's very strict guidelines on how it can be spent. So what's in front of you tonight, that we didn't have this in for FY23. So what's in front of you tonight is the movement of what we received in FY23 into that fund. Again, it was a practice of John's to move things at the time of certification of free cash. We have our team from the health department under the director Dominique Hurley and the CIU under Lieutenant Jeremiah Nicastro, diligently working on plan and reaching out to the community about how best to invest those opioid settlement funds moving forward. As of now, I believe the approved expense out of there is a clinical social work supervisor for Tito Rodriguez, who works in the CIU. So you'll see more to come on those funds. And I think that outlines things. If Kenny's on, he can give you, if you have questions about kind of the rules around any of these are balanced. I think the balances are included in all your packets as well.
Excellent. Thank you, CAO Jill.
But I apologize for no camera. I don't look great right now. Very
We
emotional.
totally understand.
So I'll go ahead, Council President, with the motions.
Please.
So the first one is a transfer of $450,000 from the general fund free cash to our OPEB trust fund. Committee recommendation on a motion by myself, Councilor Memhard, seconded by Councilor Worthley. Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2024 SA7 in the amount of $450,000 from the general fund undesignated fund balance account number as noted to the other post-employment benefit or OPEB trust fund. The transfer in from the general fund account number is noted to partially fund the city's OPEB unfunded liability, and I so move.
Second.
All right, and this will be a roll call vote unless there's any council questions or comments. Council Worthley?
So, a little further explanation. I think Councilor Memard does a fine job with this. We just want to add, we are required to fully fund our pension, and there's a deadline of 2034, fiscal year 2034, where we expect that it will be fully funded. That's based on market changes and contribution, things like that. The OPEB trust is the other post-employment benefits, as Councilman Memhard mentioned. It's health insurance, it's life insurance, it's deferred compensation. And there is no statute yet that determines that we have to do this. But it's very wise, I think, of this administration and John Dunn to have pushed us to put some money into this, because sooner or later there will be a mandate, and we'll be talking about big numbers to try to honor the commitment we've made contractually to employees. So this is getting a head start on that, and I think it's a wise move. I'll be supporting it.
So thank you, Council Worthley. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Councilor Majota,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Aye.
Councilor Nolan,
Aye.
Councilor Worthley,
Aye.
Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Grace, and Counselor Grow.
Aye.
The motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Next on the agenda.
The next item is the second part of this motion. This is a transfer of $75,596 from the general fund, free cash, to the City of Gloucester Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The committee recommendation on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley. Budget and Finance voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2024 SA number 8 in the amount of $75,596 from the general fund, undesignated fund balance, free cash, account number is noted, to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Transfer in from the general fund, account number as noted. And this is per the capital plan funding and free cash distribution policy. And I so move.
Second.
Council Memhard, do you have any narrative?
The only other, this is the source of funding that, as I believe Jill Cahill mentioned, that is coming from the surcharge that we implemented 3 or 4 years ago under the leadership of Councilor Cox at Budget and Finance, surcharge on Airbnb rentals within the city. So there's an additional 5% tax. There's no administrative costs to the city. It's all handled through the state, and we this year are receiving, as you see here, $75,000. And the city, the mayor's policy is to take this revenue and dedicate it to the city's own affordable housing trust. This is actually the largest amount that we've received in the course of the last 3 or 4 years. Prior, it was, I think, about $50,000. So this is one source of funding for the Affordable Housing Trust to work with.
Excellent. Thank you, Council Memhard. Do we have any council questions or discussions? All right, hearing none or seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Counselor Majota,
Aye.
Counselor Memhard,
Aye.
Counselor Nolan,
Aye.
Counselor Worthley,
Aye.
Counselor Gilman,
Aye.
Counselor Grace,
Aye.
and Counselor Grow.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Clerk, Council Memhard, please continue.
Item number 3 in this package here is a 2024 SA9 transfer of $186,572 from the general fund free cash to opioid settlement receipts SR fund on a committee recommendation by myself, motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Wardley. Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2024 SA number 9 in the amount of $186,572 from the general fund, undesignated fund balance, free cash, account number is noted, to the opioid settlement receipts, special revenue fund transfer from the general fund, account number is noted, per the capital plan funding and free cash distribution policy, and I so move.
Second.
All right. Council Memhard, do you have a narrative to this?
This is actually the first year that this is being handled in this particular manner, but the administration has an allocation policy in place to make sure that these opioid lawsuit funds that the city is beneficiary of are being dedicated to treating drug issues within the community and the resources to provide for that.
Well, thank you, Council Memhard. Is there any questions or comments from the council? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Counselor Majota,
Aye.
Counselor Memhard,
Aye.
Counselor Nolan,
Aye.
Counselor Worthley,
Aye.
Counselor Gilman,
Aye.
Counselor Grace,
Aye.
and Counselor Grow.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
And up next, Council Memhard.
Number 4, and I should comment that all of these allocations are based on a formula that CAO Cahill referred to, but it was developed back in the Thakin administration by CAO Jim Destino, and then the current mayor has worked with that original formula and made some additional distributions, but it's again by a formula of whatever our year-end free cash is. So the fourth item is 2024 SA10, a transfer of $1,248,772 from the general fund free cash to our capital project stabilization fund. On a recommendation by myself, seconded by Councilor Wardley, Budget and Finance voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2024 SA10 in the amount of $1,248,772 from the general fund, undesignated fund balance or / free cash, account number is noted, to the capital project stabilization fund, transfers in from the general fund, account number as noted, for the capital plan funding and free cash distribution policy. And I so move.
Second.
And Councilor Memhard, do you have any comments to this?
Again, this is the lion's share of the free cash, and it's allocated to our stabilization or rainy day fund. And we reviewed at BNF what the appropriate level of this kind of a rainy day fund typically is. They look at a margin of about 2 months of a total budget, I think. So we're not quite there, but this is a healthy rainy day fund allocation for this.
So any
city
further
budget.
discussion on this? Councilor Grow.
Yeah, I'm going to be a pedant for a second. Online, some of the community chat rooms, there was some outrage over this idea of free cash, as if it somehow was being misspent or our budgets weren't together. And I think it's really important for people to understand that free cash isn't free. It is money that is, when you put your budget together at the beginning of the year, you do your best to give your best estimates on how much money you're going to receive, how much money you're going to spend. Projects come in at varying rates of when they complete, whether they're more expensive or less expensive. Anytime there's a surplus in an account, we can't just simply spend it. It has to fall to free cash, meaning that you've got to account for the fact that you budgeted for something, it didn't cost as much, or you received more revenues than you expected. And the housing tax would be a good example. If we expected 50,000 and got 75,000, that would be 25,000 more. That would be essentially free cash. So I just want people to understand this is not free. This is not misallocated money. It's just money that has, when you get to the final process of the year and you start to analyze what your accounts look like, sometimes you get more money than you expected. Sometimes things cost less than you expected. If there's a personnel change and there's a position not filled, that's money that falls to free cash. So I just want people to understand that this isn't some sort of nefarious scheme to use tax dollars unwisely. And by putting them in stabilization accounts, we're actually doing a really important job in preparing for future unexpected expenditures.
If I could follow up, that was a good question, and we had a discussion about this with Kenny Costa, our city auditor. There have been years going back in the city where we had zero free cash or a negative free cash. The fact that we're running the city's financial matters, again, this is a tribute to John Dunn. We're running them fiscally and carefully and conservatively. This is something that actually saves us money, because the bond rating institutions in Manhattan, when we go to borrow money for a new school or a new sewer treatment plant, they look at how we manage our money, and this affects the rates that we're charged, and we have a very good rating as a result of this sound fiscal management.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilors Grow and Memhard on that. Is there any other questions or comments or discussion? All right, hearing none, could we call the roll?
Councilor Majota,
Aye.
Councilor Memhard,
Aye.
Councilor Nolan,
Aye.
Councilor Worthley,
Aye.
Councilor Gilman,
Aye.
Councilor Grace,
Aye.
and Councilor Grow.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Next up, Councilor Memhard.
Number 5 is a 2024 SA11 transfer of $713,584 from the general fund free cash to our building maintenance stabilization fund. And the committee recommendation was that on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley, Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2024 SA11 in the amount of $713,584 from the general fund, undesignated fund balance or free cash, account number is noted, to the Building Maintenance Stabilization Fund, transfers in from the general fund, account number is noted, per the capital plan funding and free cash distribution policy of the City of Gloucester, and I so move.
Second.
Hey, Councilor Memhard, do you have any narrative on this?
Same thing again, these are funds that are reserved specifically for maintenance of city-owned buildings.
Excellent, thank you. Is there any discussion, comments, or questions from the council? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilor Majota,
Aye.
Councilor Memhard,
Aye.
Councilor Nolan,
Aye.
Councilor Worthley,
Aye.
Councilor Gilman,
Aye.
Councilor Grace,
Aye.
and Councilor Grow.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
And Council Memhard.
We have two more here. Following, again, the formula that has been established by the administration. Item number 6 is a 2024 SA-12 transfer of $356,792 from general fund free cash to the general stabilization fund. And the committee recommendation is on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Wardley. Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2024 SA-12 in the amount of $356,492 from the general fund, undesignated fund balance, or free cash, account number as noted, to the general stabilization fund. Transfers in from the general fund, account number as noted, per capital plan funding and free cash distribution policy, and I so move.
Second.
Great. Councilor Memhard, do you have any narrative on this?
Nothing further. Again, this is a general stabilization fund.
Excellent. Councilor Grow, do you have any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to point out, this is a particularly important one, I think, for the city. Everybody complains about the potholes, and we know about the potholes and the inability to navigate our streets safely because they're old and they need to be maintained. Unfortunately, the money that we get from the state is allocated out of a formula that is a little strange, but we get less than $700,000 a year from the state for road maintenance. And if you ask Mike Hale, I think it's about $350,000 to $400,000 to repave a mile of city road. So we don't get a whole lot of latitude from the state. And of course, the state, it funds this through our cherry sheets, has consistently funded road repair in the entire Commonwealth at around $200 million and has essentially refused to budge off that level. So communities like ours, which have a lot of old streets and a lot of old roads, are not getting the kind of funding that we need. So when we have an opportunity to put money into the stabilization account to bolster the ability to fix and repair our streets, we should definitely take advantage of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Grow. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Council Majota,
Aye.
Council Memhard,
Aye.
Council Nolan,
Aye.
Council Worthley,
Aye.
Council Gilman,
Aye.
Council Grace,
Aye.
and Council Grow.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Councilor Memhard, now
Yes,
on to the,
the last one, and it follows up on the comments that Councilor Grow just made, and reflects a commitment by the current mayor, Greg Verga, to the conditions of our roads and towards prioritizing them. On a motion, the next item is 2024 SA-13, and it's again a transfer of $356,792 from the general fund free cash to miscellaneous paving work, CP fund, capital projects fund. And the committee recommendation on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley, Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2024 SA-13 in the amount of $356,792 from the general fund, undesignated fund balance, free cash, account number is noted, to the miscellaneous paving work capital projects fund. Transfers in from the general fund account number as noted for the capital plan funding and free cash distribution policy of the city, and I so move.
Second.
excellent. Is there a narrative to this, or did Jason already cover it?
Jason touched on it, and again, this is something new this year. We changed the formula last year to reflect a commitment towards allocating resources to addressing the potholes and the paving challenges of our city. And this is a direct reflection of a policy change that's been made, and we're living by it.
Excellent. Councilor Grow.
What I said before,
Ditto.
I say for that. I was having so much fun, I thought we were already done.
Councilor
now.
Gilman.
So this was a very important reallocation of our funding formula last year. And I really appreciated Mayor Verga taking the initiative to make that change. What we've learned from our DPW director, Mike Hale, is that the amount of money that we get in Chapter 90, which is typically about $680,000 a year, is only enough money to repave our public roads every 40 years rather than 20 when they need to be done. And this flexibility in our formula helped. And additionally, we also got additional money this year in Chapter 90 as part of the budget as well. So I think as long as we keep pushing the state to keep looking at that Chapter 90 formula for all 351 municipalities, we're going to be doing ourselves and our streets a big service. So we need to keep the pedal to the metal and keep pushing our legislators to make the right decisions, because we've learned that the conditions of our road is a big quality of life here, and we have to keep doing what we're doing with increasing that money if we don't have enough coming to us from the state. So thank you.
And thank you, Councilor Gilman. Any other councilor questions or comments?
I would, if I could, just follow
Councilor
up
Webb?
that in addition to those funds that Councilor Gilman was just referring to, Mayor Verga did make the decision based on the listening committee that he had on the ARPA federal funding resources to dedicate additional funds, let this out of the ARPA resources dedicated, received by the city. I think it was another $1.2 million or $1.5 million to paving projects. So that was a one-time additional dedication of financial resources towards maintaining Gloucester's roads.
Excellent. Thank you, Council Memhard. Is there any other questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, could we have the roll, Madam Clerk?
Councilor Majota,
Aye.
Councilor Memhard,
Aye.
Councilor Nolan,
Aye.
Councilor Worthley,
Aye.
Councilor Gilman,
Aye.
Councilor Grace,
Aye.
and Councilor Grow.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Memhard, for your spirited narrative, and I see a Gil Santos type response to color on numbers. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next on the agenda, please.
The Ordinance and Administration Standing Committee report of March 4th.
Excellent. Councilor Majota.
Committee recommendation on a motion by Council Gray, second by Council Gross. The Ordinance and Administration Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Recommend that the City Council pursue this to City Charter, Section 2(7)(a), concerning the election of the City Clerk-elect Grace E. Poirier as the City Clerk for a term effective April 6, 2024 to April 30th, 2026. And I so move.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded by Councilor Grace. Grace Poirier, would you like to come to the podium, please? Thank you for coming tonight, Grace. Even though you weren't working, you are still passing out the agendas to the crowd, and I can't thank you enough for that service. So it's a pleasure to have you. We've known you all for basically our entireties of our time on the council. So I'd like to take this time to ask if there's any questions from any of the councilors that would like to ask Grace. Anything? Comments? Okay, so we'll start with Councilor Worthley. He actually had his hand up first.
Okay, thank you. So, Grace, we are very lucky to have you. Thank you for coming in tonight, but thank you for your continued service to the city clerk's office and to the city of Gloucester. There are not enough positive words in the dictionary to list your positive traits. I'm very grateful, and I wish you well in this position. I think people don't understand how much work the city clerk's office does. Not to scare you, you know the job already, so otherwise you might be afraid of what you're getting yourself into. Between elections, every record in the city of Gloucester, from birth certificates to death certificates to marriage license to dog licenses, it is the busiest office in the city. And then you have to deal with us as city councilors. But you do that really well, and you help us with whether it's Robert's Rules of Order or the zoning code or the ordinance book. We're really lucky to have you, and thank you again for serving. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Councilor Worthley. I'd like to move on to Councilor Grow.
I just want to say I'm very delighted that you've put your hat in the ring for taking over that position. I'm very excited about your tenure to moving forward. You've always been a real help, and I love your precision. I love the fact that you take things seriously and you look into what it is that we ask you to look into, and you come back with good answers and strong data and information, which is, that's how we make our decisions. It's kind of a double-edged sword because as we as we anoint the new Empress of the clerk's office, we have to acknowledge that this is the passing of our esteemed colleague, Joanne, at some point, that point when she moves on through her retirement, and just to acknowledge what an amazing presence you've been for this council and councils prior to this. And I'm sure you have been a tremendous mentor to Grace, and I look forward to your having passed that wisdom on and then through her to us. So thank you, and thank you.
I'd like to go with Counselor Gilman.
So, Grace, you have been such a standout member of the city clerk's office in terms of your process knowledge, parliamentary procedure knowledge, all the little details that need to happen, particularly on voting day. It's amazing what a great backup you've been to our current city clerk. Our voting process has become so technical with early voting and write-in voting and everything else with the new requirements, many unfunded mandates, and you've just been, your attention to detail is amazing. When I've helped a little bit in the clerk's office on those days, and you know, you're always right there checking and following up and making sure everything is perfectly executed. And that's one of the most important components of the city clerk's office. So I am going to be supporting your appointment. You've had a great role model who we're going to miss greatly, but I know that you're ready to go. And the certification that you've gone after in parliamentary procedure and all the rules of city clerk's office, that's knowledge that you continue to share with us, and keep doing that sharing, because you're a fountain of knowledge, as has the city clerk been. And it takes a village. You've got to educate all of us on all this stuff. And I'm really grateful that you stepped forward, and I'm looking forward to celebrating a fun time with Joanne, who so much deserves a retirement to spend with her grandkids and her family. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor Gilman. Counselor Memhard.
Simply echo all that my prior counselors have said, and I have full confidence that you will do this job with great grace. Thank you.
Counselor Majota.
Yeah, you're going to do great. I'm looking forward to it. You have my support, and Joanne, we're going to miss you.
Counselor Grace.
Thank you so very much for all of your knowledge, your expertise, your grace, your kindness, and I'm looking forward to working with you, and I appreciate you.
Excellent. Thank you, Counselor Grace. You've heard this before again, but I'll let the whole city hear it. When I first became a counselor, we were in the middle of replacing Linda Lowe as clerk. And we had interviews of a lot of people for clerk and for the assistant clerk. We went with Joanne Sanos as our clerk, and that was probably one of the best decisions that we had made as a council at that time. Her ethic, her communication skills has been second to none. And I don't regret that for 1 second. And Joanne, thank you for all your service. You've definitely put your time in. I can't thank you enough for that. Grace, when we're going through the assistant clerks, we had only one real question for you, and it was two. Learn a little bit more about Robert's rules, and to come to a couple of city council meetings to see how they worked, so you could fill in and understand what's happening. And not only did you come to city council meetings, you came to almost all of them until COVID. And from what I understand, you didn't take any comp time. You learned, you were eager to be here, to learn the process and to serve the city. And I think that we knew from the start that we were hoping that you would be here for the time that's in front of us tonight to ask you to be our clerk, hopefully, in the vote. And also the Robert's rules. And you've taken that, you've taken courses, and you've been certified. And it was a very easy selection for the search committee and for O&A. you got some big shoes to fill. I always joke that Val's my work wife. And I always tell my wife that Joanne's my work mom. Yeah, I've never told her that before, but that's, you know.
I think I'm older than Joanne, though.
Not trying to be
This may
weird,
get
but
weird in a second, so be
yeah,
careful.
but we lean on the clerk a lot, and Joanne has been fantastic, and you do have some big shoes to fill. And again, I couldn't be happier, and I'm definitely going to support you tonight. And thank you very much. And Joanne, thank you for everything.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure serving. Thank you.
Okay, so with that being said, can you call the roll? Oh, we have to
Voice.
do I vote. Oh. Let's do a roll
Do
call
roll
for
call?
this one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Council Majota,
Absolutely. Aye.
Council Memhard,
Aye.
Council Nolan,
Absolutely aye.
Council Worthley,
Aye, thank you.
Council Gilman,
Absolutely, aye. Thank you.
Council Grace,
Absolutely.
and Council Grow.
Without reservation, aye.
Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Grace. Would you like to say something?
Thank you.
It's not able.
Thank you for the confidence that you have put in me tonight, and I look forward to working with all of you come April.
Thank you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
So the Planning and Development Committee of March 6th did not meet. So the next order of business is the scheduled public hearings, public hearing 2024-004, rezoning 2024-001, council order 2024-003 to amend Gloucester zoning ordinance sections 5.16.12 affordable component and section 5.16.13 payment in lieu.
All right, I am going to open the public hearings, and I am going to continue it to March 26, 2024, and close.
Can I say something, Council President?
Yes, you may.
Just want to, for people who are following this, if they're interested, the planning board did make the recommendation. It's being sent to planning and development, and it'll be discussed next Wednesday night.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Grow. Madam Clerk, next on the agenda.
The second public hearing, it's public hearing 2024-004. The recommendations from the Community Preservation Committee round 14 FY23.
Excellent. So I am going to open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody speaking in favor, and I believe that's going to be Matt. How you doing tonight, Matt? And all the applicants?
Do I need to raise my hand to share my screen, Joanne? Let me just. I don't have full participation yet.
I'd share it with you. Did you log into the Zoom?
You might have hit the wrong link.
Wait, so let me, I promoted you a panelist, so, okay, there you go.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. And for the record, could you introduce yourself and your address, please?
Hello? There we go. Yes, I'm Matt Lundberg, 21 Middle Street, Gloucester, and I'm the current chair of the Community Preservation Committee in Gloucester. Tonight we'll be recommending our round 14 2023 projects for funding through the Community Preservation Act by the City Council. I'm gonna, if it's all right, make a brief presentation of what the Community Preservation Act is, how we administer it in Gloucester, and then we will proceed to each project that requires your vote to approve the appropriation. For each of those projects, there is a representative either here in person or online who will speak to any details and answer any questions about each project.
Excellent. The floor is yours, Matt.
The Community Preservation Act is a state law that was created in 2001, and its purpose was to encourage municipalities to reserve some funding that could be used towards the one of three purposes: historic preservation, affordable housing, and open space and recreation projects. The encouragement was that the state created a fund that municipalities could access if they passed the CPA in their city or town. Passing it required a city or town to raise money through a surcharge on real estate taxes. The city of Gloucester passed it in 2010 with a 1% surcharge on residents' real estate taxes. Once you've done that, the state will match some percentage of what we raise locally. And that match over the last 10 years has varied between 17 and 44% each year. The variance is because the state money is raised based on percentage that comes off of registry of deeds transactions, and that varies based on how many real estate sales are being made each year. There is a catch, of course, a requirement on our behalf, and that is that we only spend these funds on historic preservation, affordable housing, or open space and recreation purposes. In order to make sure that we do, any city or town that adopts the CPA must create a CPC, a Community Preservation Committee. And that committee is made up in Gloucester of 5 members, 9 members total, 4 at large, and 1 each from the Planning Board, the Historical Commission, the Housing Authority, the Open Space and Recreation Commission, and the Conservation Commission. So each year we follow a process, which I will get to in a minute, but our job is to make sure that we only recommend projects that qualify under the Community Preservation Act for your funding. We get a lot of applications each year. We winnow that and recommend the ones that we think are most deserving each year. We have 3 projects, there we go. We have 12 projects that we're recommending to the City Council this year. And we will speak to each of these in turn over the rest of the presentation in the evening. These are the 12. There are 9 historic preservation projects and 3 affordable housing projects this year. Before we get into them, very briefly, here's the process that we run through each year. Each year we open a public process to allow anybody to understand what the CPA is about and encourage people to submit applications. We first vet those for eligibility, and we work closely with the grants department of the city in order to do that. Once we approve eligible projects, full applications are required, and they are quite extensive. And we get those by May, and then we spend the summer making site visits, talking with the applicants, helping them fine-tune their applications. They each make presentations to us. And then we work with the city auditor to make sure we know exactly how many funds are available. And once we've got that, we deliberate, usually over 2 meetings, but sometimes 3, to whittle our recommendations to you down to the package that we come up with. At that point, we recommend them to the mayor. It goes to BNF, and after BNF reviews and recommends, we come to where we are this evening. So that's the full process. Once you approve, agreements are made between the cities and the applicants that govern the release of funds. I should mention funds are only released as approved activities on these projects are completed and invoiced by the party that did it. We never give money to applicants beforehand. We only do it after the work is done. So without further ado, we shall proceed into each project. Again, I mentioned there are 12 projects this year, 9 historic and 3 community housing. This slide briefly says where the Community Preservation Act funds sat before these recommendations and where they sit afterwards. We are recommending those 12 projects total of $891,469 of appropriation recommendations this year. So the first project is from the Cape Ann Museum. Martha Oakes is with us from the museum this evening. And actually the first two projects are from the museum. This first one is restoration. Yes. Yes.
In interest of time and how long we've been here, does anybody like to take a recess for a few minutes before we go into the longer public hearing for a break? Yes. We do a 2-minute recess.
Great.
Excellent. Sorry about that. Just to know everybody in the audience want to stretch their legs. We're all here for everybody for that brief intermission. And Matt, again, the floor is yours. Sorry for the interruption, but I think we could have all used that.
Thank you. Our first project for recommendation is the 14 Elm Street preservation from the Cape Ann Museum. I should mention that initial applications come in with a requested amount, and sometimes we recommend the full requested amount to you. Sometimes we recommend less. In this case, the request was for $170,000. We recommended $75,000. It's an historical preservation project. I won't read the rest of the comments, and I would turn the any more presentation and questions over to Martha Oakes. Come on up.
Oh, okay.
All one thing, but we're just getting our information.
Thank you. I think Matt's going to put a picture up, but we're here tonight about the back part of the Cape Ann Museum. Its physical address is 14 Elm Street, and you're all used to looking at 27 Pleasant Street. But as you know, the facility runs down to the back neighborhood. The building is shown on the left as it is today in the image, and then the right-hand picture shows it when it was constructed in 1916. The museum acquired the building in 1989, and today it's connected to the front part, and it's an integral part of the museum. It houses our research library and the archives, our educational classroom, the bathrooms, the elevator, and our fisheries exhibitions. And the fisheries displays include Howard Blackburn's sloop, The Great Republic, the original wooden statue of Our Lady of Good Voyage, and one of the two 1869 lenses off the top of Thatcher's lighthouse. So it has a lot of very large, important historical objects inside it. As I said, the building was built in 1916 as the local headquarters for New England Telephone and Telegraph Company. So that's where the main switchboard was for the city, as well as offices for the phone installers, the linemen, and the administrative staff. In 1964, the General Services Administration arm of the federal government purchased the property, and for many years it was used for National Marine Fisheries and NOAA offices, and the museum bought it at public auction from the GSA in 1989. As I said, it's joined to the front part of the building now. That took place in 1990, and since then we've done very little structurally, very few capital improvements to it because it's been fine. But now we're about to embark on a renovation project that starts the end of this year. We estimated at about $4 million, but I suspect it'll be a little bit more. And it includes just this section of the building. And what I'm before you here tonight is for funds to help with the exterior. It has a brick facade, many of the same window openings, although not the same sashes. We will be hopefully using CPA funds, which we've already matched, to do restoration on the brickwork, which will include washing, repointing, brick repairs, and repairs to 30 of the lintels at each of the window openings. We'll also be doing some repairs on the side of the building that faces the Browns parking lot on Elm Street, which is not in great condition. And we'll also be replacing and building new shutters for some of the windows that have been closed over. As you know, when you go into that section of the museum, there's almost no windows because it's a museum space, but we've preserved the fenestration on the outside so it looks much as it did in 1916. The work on the brick exterior is estimated about just over $200,000. And again, it's part of a much larger project. And we expect to be done with this work by the end of this year. We're going to go ahead and do it before the rest of the major renovations in the building. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Yes.
Thank you, Martha. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Martha. So I continue to be intrigued by the amount of public access we have. Because to me, when we're getting CPA funds from taxpayers, taxpayers want to make sure that they're getting an opportunity to experience. I was wondering if you could share with us, from your perspective, what the 2 or 3 most notable opportunities are that are offered during the year at the Cape Ann Museum, because it just makes me excited, and I thought it would be nice if you would share it.
As most of you know, we do typically charge admission, although every month, the first Saturday of the month, it's free to the community. The first Friday night of the month, it's free to the community. There are any number of programs that go on throughout the year that are usually collaborations between the museum and the library and the city, so forth, like the Middle Street Walk or the public art program through the schools. There are annual exhibits about to take place. We're always free for those. People under 18 are admitted free. And there's any number of events throughout the year. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone be turned away because they couldn't pay the admission fee. There's also get-in free passes at the Sawyer Library and at all the other community libraries in the area.
Thank you.
Any other councilor questions or comments to this? All right. Hearing none.
So because we're doing this wholesale, we're gonna take questions and comments on each individual thing before we move on to the next one?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
But after the questions and comments.
Unless there's a question.
Is there anybody? Don't go far. Does anybody like to speak in opposition? Seeing none. Do we have any communications?
There are no communications on this project.
Alrighty, already done question of councilors. We're not closing the public hearing because we're going to continue as one, but we are going to have the motion.
I would like to make one quick comment if I could. I'll get into the scheme and the running of things here shortly. I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, I just wanted to say how lucky we are, Martha, to have you in your position at that museum with all the work that you put into this endeavor. It's truly amazing. And the other thing I'd like to say is that I've actually had people say things like, why does the museum get a tax break? You know, and because it's a nonprofit. And I look at the amount of energy and income and residual effect it had on our economy this summer to have the Hopper exhibit present with the amount of people who came out of the community specifically for that exhibit, stayed for our restaurants, stayed for our shops, walked our streets. It really is such an important asset to our downtown and to the community at large. And I just wanted to thank you for your role in it.
Is there any counselors with anything on this list that would like to declare a 268A for any of these reasons of the 12? Councilor Memhard.
Under Mass General Law 268A, I need to declare that while Martha and I are married, I have no financial interest in this project.
Thank you, Councilor Memhard. So now, with that being said, do we have a motion?
X. So Budget and Finance, on a recommendation by myself, seconded by Councilor Gross, Budget and Finance voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $75,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds, as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee, to provide funding to the Cape Ann Museum for the purpose of supporting the restoration and preservation of 14 Elm Street in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the Historic Preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4760, and I so move.
Second.
So I do have a question, Madam Clerk. We're going to vote these one by one and then close the public meeting afterwards. And this is a simple aye. So it's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, and that's 7 in favor, 2 absent and 0 opposed. Thank you, Martha, and Cape Ann Museum. Next up, Matt Lundberg.
Yep. Next project is again, the Cape Ann Museum. So you will have a little bit more of Martha. The continuing stabilization work for the Babson Alling House. That is located at Cam Green, just off Grant Circle. This is a project that was begun in previous year with funding. And this is a request for some additional funding to finish off some additional work that came up through the course of the project. And I will give it back to Martha to explain a little bit more and answer questions.
This is a project that we started during the pandemic, and we got an extension from the city because things got terribly bogged down because of the pandemic, and we were able to finish 2 years after the award was made. This is work on the Babson Alling House, which is the bright yellow house that you see when you come in on Grant Circle. It was built around 1740, and it was a private home until it was purchased for the Cape Ann Museum in 2018. And we've slowly been trying to restore or stabilize the envelope of the building before we start working on the inside. So with your help and some grants from other foundations, we've done a new roof, we've rebuilt the central chimney, and we've done stabilization work on the clapboards, trim and window on 3 sides of the building. And then we paused. We've come back to you, and we've gone back to the Babson Historical Association for matching grants, which they've already awarded in the amount of $40,000. And we're now ready to finish the final side of the house, which is the one that faces the Rotary. Again, it needs stabilization work on the wooden clapboards, the trim, the gutter system, the window sashes, and the foundation, and then also to turn to the little freestanding privy, which is adjacent to the building, which is also from about 1740, to do the same type of work on the exterior of that building, and also to join with graduate students from UMass Boston's Fisk Center for Archaeological Research to do a little bit of archaeological exploration in the area immediately surrounding the privy. As you know, that's where you'll usually find all sorts of good historical materials that can tell us about, especially people who might have been in the area before the house was built, before English settlers were even here. So this is a project that we look forward to starting this spring and finishing as soon as possible. When we do our renovations at 27 Pleasant Street, all of our operations and staff will be moved to the Cape Ann Museum Green for perhaps as much as a year and a half to make way for renovations. So we will be using the inside of the Babson Alling House as it is. It's not very pretty inside, but it will certainly do for an office, and storing our collections in the new James Center there as best we can. So it's an important release valve for the museum. And then when we move back downtown in 2026, we'll continue with work on the inside of the Babson Alling House, preparing to open it to the public as soon as we can.
Excellent. Thank you, Martha. Is there anyone else speaking in favor? Anybody to speak in opposition? Hearing none. Do we have any communications?
There are no communications on this project.
So do we have any questions or comments from the council? Council Memhard.
Just wanted to ask about the museums working with local contractors as much as possible. I believe that's something that you've been able to achieve.
We've been fortunate to have a very good local contractor who comes when there's an emergency and has stuck to the budget very carefully and was willing to pause when we needed to pause. The masonry work was done by a fellow from Maine, but otherwise it's all local people.
Any other questions or comments, Council Worthley?
Comments, unless you want to put the motion on the table first. I'll just make some comments. I want to just echo what Councilor Groh said on the last one. I think it applies here too. I don't hear a lot of people complaining that you're a nonprofit or that you're tax exempt, but if people are wondering those sorts of things, what you bring as an organization to our quality of life for residents and also to our economy. Every dollar spent in Gloucester gets spent 5 more times somewhere else. And the Hopper exhibit, I was actually, it was during the campaign season, I was putting a sign up and someone was trying to figure out how to use the kiosks, and then trying to figure out where to go to eat, and then it kind of dawned on me, this was just a line of people coming over and over again. They're going to local restaurants, they're staying in local accommodations, and then the value, what you bring in terms of celebrating our history, I think we should just always be very happy and proud, and it's a net gain to the city of Gloucester financially. Even with these the funds, it's still a net gain to our bottom line and to the city, so thank you again.
Other councilors?
Before Val asks, everything at the Green is always free to the public. There's an exhibition space there, and we use the inside and the outside seasonally, but the season stretches from like now until November, and we haven't charged admission at all there yet. So, thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Martha.
So that being said, Councilor Memhard, do we have a motion?
Project number 2, the continued stabilization work for the Babson Alling House. The amount is $36,469. The applicant is the KPN Museum. Budget and Finance recommended on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley. We voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $36,469 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the KPN Museum for the purpose of supporting the continued stabilization work of the Babson Alling House in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the Historical Preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4761, and I so move.
Second.
Is there any councilor discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Thank you again, Martha. Matt, the floor is yours.
Our next project is the next project is from the City of Gloucester's Cemeteries Advisory Committee. It is the second phase of an ongoing project that we have at the Bayview Cemetery to restore aspects of the gravestones and the rest of the cemetery there. Speaking here tonight about it is Chris Maney. And Chris, the floor is yours.
Hello. Good evening to you all.
How you doing, Chris? If you just give your name and your address for the record.
Of course, of course. So it's Chris Maney. I live at 3 Compass Way in Gloucester. I'm coming as a member of the city-owned Cemetery Advisory Committee, which is a city's committee, and we're part of DPW, Gloucester's DPW. With respect to the restoration and preservation of Bayview Cemetery, this particular application fulfills the CPA categories of historic restoration and preservation of city-owned property, which has his historical significance, as well as the fact that the cemetery is an open space. Bayview Cemetery, it was established in 1728 as a cemetery for Third Parish. And the first burial was in 1730, and the last known burial was in 1925. It is a small area of a little under 2 acres, and it maintains, as we know right now, 350 graves. As an open space, I say to you that Bayview, all of our cemeteries actually are open spaces, but Bayview is actually on the state's designated Essex Scenic Coastal Byway, which is part of the Essex National Heritage, and therefore, provides an opportunity for people to stop and visit and to, to explore that particular area. With respect to phase 2 of the restoration of Bayview Cemetery, 3 contributors actually make up this proposal. One of the contributors would be CPA funding. The funding will provide the salary for hiring of a professional restorer who will restore and preserve 150 to 160 gravestones within a third of Bayview Cemetery. That particular restorer is from Gravesite Preservation, which is a company located in Winchester, Massachusetts. The second contributor to this particular proposal would be Gloucester's DPW in-kind support. Gloucester's DPW provides us with maintenance, landscape care, gives us some supplies, and if you all agree to this, a very exciting component, not only the restoration of these gravestones, is the fact that we've discovered an 1800 pathway of 10-plus granite slabs, which were present in the late 1800s, which allowed people to actually walk from Washington Street up to South Kilby. And so again, if it's approved by y'all, we'll be able to, the DPW is planning on excavating and resetting those stones so that there'll be a wonderful pathway in the mid-region of the cemetery itself. The third contributor to this would be cemetery volunteers in kind, support. And I estimate that it'll probably be over and above 400 hours of volunteer work, with respect to documentation, with respect to cleaning stones, removing invasive vegetation, documenting, doing a digital presentation available to the public. All this will be completed, with this particular proposal. So in conclusion, so Bayview is one of the city's 14 city-owned cemeteries. And it's very important that it is restored, because you must keep in mind that the restoration of a cemetery allows for the documentation of the significant history of this city through those that are interred in this cemetery. It's their stories that tell our history. And again, to make another point, the cemetery provides a beautiful open space. So do you have any questions?
Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this?
Am I asking?
Stay there.
Is there anybody like to speak in opposition? Is there any communications, Madam Clerk?
There are no communications on this project.
Are there any questions from the councilors? And I'll start with Councilor Grubb.
Thank you. As I rapidly approach the age where I might need one of these spaces myself, I'm wondering, is there a general registry available online or to the public of who is buried in these cemeteries, and a synopsis of maybe of the stories that you know of them to date?
Very good question. So the City Cemetery Advisory Committee, there's 5 of us, and we're all volunteers, and we all live in Gloucester. One of our group projects happens to be a database. We've created a database right now of about maybe 18 to 20,000 graves that are throughout Gloucester in various cemeteries. And with that, they recorded their birth dates, their their death dates, if they were married, who their husbands were, not children, if they were veterans. So that database is hopefully going to be released onto the website, through the cemetery's webpage, so that it becomes publicly available. So once that's released, we're just going to keep building and building that data. With respect to Bayview, the intent is by the end of the full restoration, which would be in 2027, that all the burials are noted and documented and photographed and presented digitally, so they'll be available to any and everyone. So that's our goal. We just need more people.
Still alive.
Yes, you are. And the stories, and see the stories, that's the important part, but it's like research, it just takes so much time, but we're getting there.
With that being said, Councilor Memhard, do we have a motion?
Project number 3, Bayview Cemetery Restoration Phase 2, amount $40,000, applicant City of Gloucester Cemeteries Advisory Committee. Budget and Finance, on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Gross, voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $40,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the City of Gloucester Cemeteries Advisory Committee for the purpose of supporting the preservation and restoration of the Bayview Cemetery Restoration Phase 2 in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Capital Projects Fund, number 5812, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, councilors? Council Worthley.
Thank you. First, thank you for volunteering, and please pass on our gratitude to the rest of the members of the committee.
I will.
You're the face of the committee, and we appreciate you, but just make sure they know that too.
I definitely will.
And it's not just the Bayview Cemetery, the other 13 cemeteries that you take care of. I do wonder, it's sort of partly a question, once the restoration is done, what's the commitment or the expectation for maintenance so that we're not sort of finishing it and then being here in 10, 15 years saying we need to do it again because we haven't maintained that? If that's okay, Mr. President, if that's okay to ask that. Thank you.
No, it's a very good question. So you may hear me use the word restoration and preservation, and these are words that are discussed and debated upon. So with respect to restoration, restoration is where you repair and restore something to its period piece, but not alter it. But for instance, imagine that you have a gravestone and it's in pieces, but it's missing a chunk in the center part. Rather than just gluing all the parts together, what you also, with respect to restoration, you would apply, a particular type of filler so that you held all the pieces together like a puzzle, but not changing the overall state of the gravestone itself to maintain its integrity. On top of that, the word preservation is where you have techniques to prevent destruction. So when I say this to you, we would use, the restorers use sealants, very particular sealants for either red sandstone or for slate or for granite or for marble, such that the weathering, and the natural forces are somewhat abated by these sealants. So we're hoping for 75 to 100 years, and that's 100 years is probably on the outside, but 75 years at least, to protect these stones with the new techniques and with our restorer.
Thank you for letting me.
Councilor Gilman.
Council Worthley basically summarized what I was going to say, but I would like to add that Bayview Cemetery is at the end of my street. I walk by the cemetery every single day with my dog, not through the cemetery with the dog, but around the cemetery. And I've often seen this individual there working.
Rob.
And it's really nice to see this maintenance, this ongoing maintenance. And the stairs down the middle with the granite is very intriguing.
Be handsome.
It will just definitely improve some of the enhancements of our neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if all, I don't know if any had a chance to come here. During the 400, we had all those wonderful cemetery tours. And so we had about 9 tours, and we had at least 50 to 100 people come to these tours. So even speaking about genealogy, history, it brings everybody, especially to Gloucester because, well, not only because it's on the scenic byway, the very coastal town, but because it has so much history and so much family, ties that bring a lot of people to this particular town, which is a good thing. So I thank you for your support.
Any other councilor discussion?
Just want to comment.
Councilman Jojo.
You seem very energetic and positive. It's just great to see you.
Okay.
And you make it very exciting.
Thank you. You want to come and clean stones?
Bring his 3 kids with him to help.
Yes.
We're going to have a workshop. So it's some, I will. And the other thing too, I would like to thank Matt and his committee because they're always helping us and supporting us. Those are as the applicants with respect to advice, with respect to just support. So it's wonderful working with the CPC committee and Matt.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chris, for all your hard work and dedication. The cemeteries committee has come a long way in conjunction with the DPW and the way that they approach the maintenance and the weekly cutting and weed whacking and keeping up with it is making a big difference as well. So I think with the collaboration of the two, we're going to see a lot more changes in our cemeteries.
You will. Yeah, Mike,
Appreciate it.
they're great. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing them.
All right. So with all that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So the ayes have it. 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Next on the agenda, Councilor Memhard. Oh, sorry, Matt.
Thank you. The next project is from Historic New England, who oversees the Sleeper McCann House. It's the Beauport Chimney Preservation Project. It's pretty self-explanatory. With us here tonight is Christina Pagwata, who's going to speak to it. And thank you.
Thank you, Christina. If you could just give us your name and address for the record.
Christina Pawatka, 75 Eastern Point Boulevard. Hello, I'm Christina. I work for Historic New England. I am a preservation project manager. Of that, I am responsible for the property.
In the butt.
If we can, we can have you sit at the dais. You can have a seat at the dais and just pull the mic down to your desire.
Hello?
Check.
Okie dokie. So I'm responsible for the preservation of our sites in the North Shore, Massachusetts, as well as our Piscataqua region, so New Hampshire and Southern Maine. So at the Beauport, so the Sleeper McCann House, we have 6 chimneys. 4 of the 6 chimneys are exhibiting signs of water infiltration. It's happened for many, many years. We've done many repairs to all 6 of them, including repointing, replacing bricks, even rebuilding them. Nothing seems, for the most part, water is still getting in. And what we want to do is really look at it holistically and take not take a step back, but we don't want to keep putting money at it and trying to do these different repairs, doing different flashing, adding crickets, all of that. What we want to do is we want to take a step back. We want to monitor for a solid year, a whole calendar year, so all 4 seasons. We want to see exactly where the water is getting in. We want to see what the seasons, especially the shoulder seasons, are doing to the chimneys and what it's doing to the humidity and all of that. And so so this is just an example. So Beauport is on the right, it's right on the harbor. So it's right, it gets blasted by the water, the salt air, all of that. So it is susceptible to deterioration. On the left is just an example of why this is so important to us. That's the potted chimney. It's one of the 4 that has active water infiltration. Oh, no, it's a work, just the next slide. No, it's okay, thank you. Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. So there is a couple years ago, so in 2018, we did some masonry work on a couple different chimneys. These were letting water into a couple different spaces on the interior. We did the chimney work. We thought everything was good to go. So then we attacked some of the interior spaces. So we did some replaster, we did some repainting, and we thought everything was fine. That was all on our own dime, and we were pretty excited that we finally had everything buttoned up. And then shortly thereafter, we saw that there were still signs of water infiltration. So the repointing, the adding of the crickets, the different types of flashing, that wasn't what is that's not what was working. So the typical maintenance is not the issue here. So that's why we kind of want to take a step back. We want to hire a consulting firm. We've worked with them before. We worked with them in 2006 to do an entire assessment of the property, both interior and exterior. So they are familiar with us. As you can see from the roof line before, it's a pretty expansive property. It's very detailed. All 6 chimneys are different than each other. So what might work for one chimney might not work for the other chimney. And so so our goal is to do monitor it for a year, see how that works, see what data they collect, and then go from there, which will include going back to them. They will design some different alterations that we can do. Different types, maybe crickets, different types of flashing, through wall flashing, whatever they are kind of recommending. And then after that, we will do our 2 most pressing chimneys. And then after that, we'll do the 2 not as pressing chimneys. So it's a multi kind of year plan is what we're doing.
Excellent, thank you very much. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak in favor of this? Aaron, and seeing none, is there anybody like to speak in opposition? Aaron, and seeing none, has there been any communications, Madam Clerk?
There was no communication on this project.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the council? Councilor Grow.
Just because we don't get you guys here very often, can you explain to us the significance of the difference in the 6 different chimneys?
So the house is built by Henry Davis Sleeper. He was an interior designer. So really the way we kind of explain it to people is he used the house, which was his house. He had a townhouse in Boston, but this was like his summer house, his vacation house. He used it kind of as a display piece for his potential clients. So we actually have like 5 different dining rooms. There's the 6 chimneys are different. There's multiple living spaces. Every bedroom is completely different than the one that it borders. So really, there's not a rhyme or reason why he did those chimneys, but that's why they're all different than the next, is because he wanted a wow factor. He wanted something when his guests came, he wanted their jaw to drop, and to also use this as, do you like this chimney? If not, I have 5 other chimneys that I could put on your house.
I know, imagine that.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Any other questions from the council? All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion?
So this is project number 4, the Beauport Chimney Preservation. The amount is $20,000. The applicant is Historic New England. Budget and Finance recommended on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Gross. We voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $20,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide his funding to Historic New England for the purpose of supporting the Beauport Chimney Preservation Project in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from the unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Projects Fund number 4762, and I so move.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded by Council Worthley. Is there any discussion from any councilors? All right, seeing none, this will be in a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So this passes, 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Thank you very much. Next up, number 5, Matt.
Check. There we go. Okay, next project is from the City of Gloucester Committee for the Arts, a project to preserve city-owned artworks. With us remotely is Karen Steuben. So if you can add her in, and I will turn this off. She will speak to the project.
Hello, can you hear me? Good. Okay, let me make sure I'm turned up all the way here. So this project is for a long overdue assessment of the artworks, 200 or 300 in number, that the city owns. It is murals and it is the bronze plaques and historic plaques that are all over the city, and the sculptures that are all over the city. This project is going to happen over 2 different phases. And actually there's a preliminary phase happening now. There is some funding being dedicated to a full inventory of all of the city-owned artworks, which have been collected over many, many, many years. And so we have a full assessment and a digital and updatable inventory of everything, all of the WPA murals, all the paintings, the mayoral portraits that are in City Hall, and the sculptures and bronzes. So that's happening now as we speak. And then the CPA funding will support professional conservation assessment of the bronzes, the sculptures, and an updated assessment of the WPA murals. There was an assessment done back in 2018 by the Williamstown Art Conservation Group of the murals, and that has to be updated. And then taking from there, there will be prioritized projects that will be begin to be funded toward the end of this period, toward the end of next year, of both the sculptures and the murals as the conservation experts recommend to the Committee for the Arts. So we have a very wonderful, newly energized Committee for the Arts, and we are just so grateful that this amount of funding has been approved up to this point. It's again, as I said, it's kind of long overdue work on what really is the identity of this city, the identity and the cultural heritage of the city, as reflected in its publicly owned artworks. So it's just a way to assess them and to make sure that they are fully conserved as time goes on and into the future. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Karen. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor of this? Seeing and hearing none. Is there anybody like to speak in opposition? Seeing and hearing none. Has there been any communications, Madam Clerk?
There is no communication on this project.
Excellent. Is there any questions from the council? Seeing none. Then I'd like to hear the motion. Councilman Memhard.
Thank you. This is project number 5, city-owned artwork preservation. The amount is $125,000, and the applicant is the City of Gloucester Committee for the Arts. And Budget and Finance voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $125,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to City of Gloucester Committee for the Arts for the purpose of restoration and preservation of city-owned artworks in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Capital Projects Fund 5813, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so the question has been moved by Councilman Memhard, seconded by Councilor Worthley. Is there any discussion amongst the council? Seeing none, I'll call for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Karen, thank you very much for all your hard work in your committee.
Thank you so, so much. Yeah, very much.
Matt?
Yes, our next project is at the Hammond Castle Museum. It is restoration of the oceanside exterior. With us this evening for this, from the museum is Beth Whalen. And Beth, floor is yours, and I think the microphone's working.
How you doing, Beth? If you just give your name and the address for the record.
Okay, my name is Beth Wellen, and I live at 5 Low Drive here in Gloucester. I have a 2-minute commute, so I'm sorry if anybody else has a longer one. But, before I start, I just want to say a huge thank you to the CPA for your past support, and I really, really hope that you have noticed the forward momentum at Hammond Castle, because it is striking compared to even just 7 years ago. We are on a very forward campaign to restore the building. It's going to be turning 100 years old in a few years, and we are dealing with a lot of the maintenance issues that have been, you've actually heard some of the same problems already. We are a building that is covered in mortared stone, and we are on the cliff in direct path of every single sea storm. So all that salt air, not to mention our fluctuation of temperatures, has deteriorated the mortar. So we do need to repoint. We have water infiltration as a result of this deteriorating mortar. And we have been attacking various sections of the building. So this next phase is the ocean side, which is probably where the worst amount of water has been coming in. And once we can repoint that and stop the water egress, then we can work on the inside of the wall and replace the deteriorated plaster that was on the walls on the inside. Unfortunately, those walls are the rooms that the organ pipes are in. So that's definitely not good for the organ, and which is why the organ is currently not being used. It's not very safe to use the organ for the organ's longevity if there's crumbling plaster in it. So as we are making all these water egress repairs, we will also be dealing with the issues that the organ in that particular area needs to be repaired. It is a multi-phase project, and you will, over the next few years, keep hearing, through our news blasts and everything as we move forward, as we keep making this castle look its absolute best. It is a very unique property like Beauport. Val, in case you already are thinking about asking, what do we do for Gloucester? um, I heard it click. Is that working? Okay. Every Tuesday is free day for Gloucester residents. We also have a partnership with Pathways for Children, and that during the summer, every week there's
Well,
we do work with Pathways, and we do have free groups coming in all throughout the summer. And at Christmas time, that's our big thing. We have Santa at the castle for 2 days, which is absolutely magical. The Pathway kids come for free, and they get a wonderful present as they go home. And we are here, we're part of Gloucester, we're part of Gloucester's history. We're very excited with the momentum that we're going. And if you haven't been in the last couple of years, please come by. We've just spent this past winter doing all kinds of improvements and rearranging of artifacts and bringing things down that haven't been on display forever. We're really excited about what we're doing over there. And we just want to show it off, and we want to take the best care of it that we can. And we need help.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak in favor? Seeing and hearing none, is there anybody who'd like to speak in opposition? Seeing and hearing none, has there been any communications, Madam Clerk?
There's no communication on this project.
Is there any councilor questions on this matter? Council Worthley.
How would an organist in Gloucester have an opportunity to play their organ once it's in good repair?
Everybody cross your fingers.
Okay.
We're hoping to have a division up and running Christmas. It won't be all 8,000 pipes. We have to, like I said, we have to do each chamber at a time. And it's what's really, well, it's kind of a good problem. We have to empty the room of all the organ components in order to fix the room. And then before we put all the organ pieces back in, we're going to fix them. There's no point in putting broken and, old wiring back in. So it's going to be a multi-year, multi-phase, multi-chamber process. But like I said, everybody keep your fingers crossed. The property committee keeps telling us they're going to have one division, or I'm not sure of what you call all the different sections, but they're going to have a chamber of pipes working supposedly by Christmas. But within 2 years, there's definitely going to be organ concerts again, and that's the goal.
Forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other councilor questions? Excellent. With that being said, do we have a motion, Councilman Menard?
Absolutely. This is project number 6, the Hammond Castle Oceanside Exterior Restoration Project in the amount of $87,000. And the applicant is the Hammond Castle Museum. Budget and Finance at our November 9th, 2023 meeting recommended on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley. We voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $87,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended to us by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the Hammond Castle Museum for the purpose of supporting the Hammond Castle Oceanside exterior restoration in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the Historic Preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund number 4763, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so the motion's been made by Councilor Memhard and seconded by Councilor Worthley. Now we're on to council discussion. We'll start with Councilor Gilman.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. So I wanted to just say that probably one of my most exciting memories of this past year and a half was both a presentation by Les Bartlett at the museum and then the free tour that was offered maybe about 6 months ago as part of the 400th. And both experiences were just completely exceeded my expectation. And for anybody in this community that hasn't taken advantage of the free tours on Tuesdays, take advantage of it, because you really will feel proud and you will understand why CPA is important for residents of Gloucester. So thank you.
Any other discussion, councilors? No? All right. I'd just like to say that I do have a shorter commute than you. I too live in Magnolia. I used to live on the corner of Low Drive in Norman, but being born and raised there, the Hammond Castle has always been a spectacular place for us, even as kids. When I was growing up, it was very active in the 70s, and they always opened the door for the neighborhood to come around and kind of run amok, I guess, actually, and it was great. So the castle holds a special place in my heart. And that being said, I'll call for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So that passes 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Thank you very much. And the floor is yours, Matt.
Mike isn't.
I think we're living on borrowed time on these mics. I just keep powering it back on after it comes off. Our next project is an application from Manship Artists Residence and Studios to fund an improvements feasibility study. With us remotely this evening will be Rebecca Reynolds. Fred Groff and Joe Castano, I think from the Residence Studios, are also online, but I believe Rebecca will be the primary presenter. So if she's available. Yeah,
Just raised her hand at the top.
perfect. So I'll turn this over to Rebecca once she is active.
Good evening. I'm here on Zoom with Fred Groff, as Matt mentioned. Fred is a board member and the chair of our Building and Grounds Committee. My name is Rebecca Reynolds and I live on Ferry Street. I'm the founder and executive director of the Manship Artists Residency. We want to begin with gratitude to you, counselors, for your past support of our plans to preserve and renew our buildings and restore the grounds on this historic site. Starfield, the former summer residence and studio of Paul Manship, continues the legacy of arts and culture in our community. It represents and stands today for the many artists who for generations came to Cape Ann for inspiration and community. We also want to thank you, counselors, who came to visit 2 weeks ago. We really appreciate you taking the time away from your family and other commitments to come and see what we've created and continue to develop intentionally with the support of our community. Tonight, we're here to ask for $50,000. This represents the remainder of the initial $100,000 that we had originally asked the CPC for in 2022, and which they recommended that we request in installments. So these funds, as you see, will be used to continue the work we began last year to understand how best to preserve and renew the buildings and grounds. It will be used for paying for design fees, including the architect, engineers, cost estimators, as well as filing and permitting fees. And we want to let you know that we have been able to leverage your promised funds and raise additional $60,000 with the support of the Mass Cultural Council and private donations. Do you have any questions for me tonight?
All right. So with that being said, is there anybody else speaking in favor? Hearing and seeing none, is there anybody speaking in opposition? Hearing and seeing none. Madam Clerk, have we had any communications?
There's no communication on this project.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any questions from the councilors? All right. No questions. So with that being said, Council Memhard, do we have a motion?
Yes, indeed. This is our project number 7 this evening. This is the Manship Artists Residence and Studios. The amount requested is $50,000. The applicant is the Manship Improvements Feasibility Study. Budget and Finance on January 4th, 2024 voted on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley. 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $50,000 for the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the Manship Improvements Feasibility Study for the purpose of supporting the restoration and preservation of Manship Artists Residence and Studios in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from the unrestricted funds and reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund number 4764, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so the motion has been moved and seconded by Councilor Worthley. Is there any councilor discussion? All right, Councilor Gilman.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Rebecca Reynolds and also Joanne Castano for the stellar job that they've been doing since the inception of this wonderful artist residency. And just note that
to counselors that I was on the initial board of this unbelievably great resource for our community. And it's just something to all take advantage of. And I'm so grateful that most of you went to a tour a couple of weeks ago. And it was just a wow. When I walked into the barn the first time, it was a wow. So anyway, thank you for your hard work and to the hard work of the board.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other question? Discussion, sorry. All right. I'd just like to say, Rebecca, thank you for all the work that's going into that place. I've been following it for a couple of years. I'm sorry I missed the visit. And I'd just like to say that I can assure you that every counselor at this dais today understands what the manship is and what they do. So, hopefully we don't have any other questions on this in the future. And thank you very much for your hard work. And with that being said, I'd like to call for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, so the vote passes 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Rebecca, thank you very much. Matt, the floor is yours for number 8.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next project applicant is the Sargent House Museum, and the project is to effect restoration on the visitors entrance side of the building. Here with us this evening is Jeremy Melvin, who will present a little bit more information on this and answer any questions.
Good evening. I'm Jeremy Melvin. I live at 117 Washington Street, and I'm here today in my capacity as the president of the board of the Sargent House Museum. And I'd like to begin by thanking you for your support in the past. You've helped us with some much more significant CPA grants previously. Fortunately, tonight we don't require such significant help. But the Sargent House Museum, as you likely know, is one of the architectural treasures of the city, built in 1782 in the High Georgian style. It sits above Main Street on its terrace lawns. And it's also historically very significant beyond its merely aesthetic value because it provides a concrete link to some important historical events. Primarily, today we focus on the life of Judith Sargent Murray, who was one of the very earliest advocates for women's rights in the English-speaking world. Also to John Murray and the Sargent family generally, who were the early founders of the Universalist Church in America and the founders of the oldest Universalist church in the world, which is here in Gloucester. And also the artist John Singer Sargent and now his sister Emily Sargent. You may not be aware, but a couple of years ago, the Sargent family found a trove of Emily Sargent's watercolors that had sat in a trunk under a bed since they'd been put there in the 1930s. And they gave them to the Ashmolean Museum at Oxford, the Tate in London, the MFA, the Met, the Smithsonian, and the Sargent House Museum. So we have a current exhibit up last season of her paintings, and it'll be up again this summer. But I'm here today to talk about the building, which is a beautiful building, but is always in need of tender care. And today we're hoping to repair and repaint the east facade of the building, which is fortunately one of the smaller of the facades, but it's also one of the most in danger because of its location on the east side and the neighboring trees and buildings. It's the side that gets the least sun and is always the most damp. And so currently we have several areas of rotting wood, mainly clapboards, but also some of the trim, which is historically significant. And the entire facade needs to be repainted. It was last painted in 2008 or 2009. I'm not exactly sure which year. It was then patched. Some areas of rot were sort of quickly attended to and large sections were repainted. Both of those paint jobs are now failing. The patches are failing as well. There's more rot continuing to expand beyond those patched areas from several years ago. And we hope there isn't more significant rotting elsewhere on the facade, but we won't find that out until we really start scraping away the paint and looking at what the wood looks like underneath. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this? Seeing and hearing none. Is there anybody who'd like to speak in opposition? Seeing and hearing none. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence?
There's no correspondence in regard to this project.
Do you have any questions from counselors? Seeing and hearing none, I would call for the committee report. Council Memhard.
Absolutely. Welcome, Jeremy. This is our project number 8, the Sargent House Museum Visitors Entrance Side Restoration. The amount is $8,000 and the applicant is the Sargent House Museum. At our January 4th, 2024 meeting, the Budget and Finance Committee voted on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $8,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended to us by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the Sargent House Museum for the purpose of supporting the Sargent House Museum Visitors Entrance Side Restoration in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the Historic Preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund number 4765, and I so move.
Second.
Right. Motion's been moved by Council Memhard and seconded by Council Worthley. Is there any discussion?
Comment if I could. One quick
Council
comment.
Worthley.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for caring for this building. It's not a comment on this exact project, but there is a state program for facade improvement in the downtown district, and we always think that means to expose original brick and beams, but it's for any kind of facade that's restoring the original design. So if this isn't enough money, or if there's another range for this project, maybe you want to also consider, and there's no cost. It's a grant that's literally a cash grant for, well, it's not cash, but it's without strings attached for facade improvement in the downtown district. So just want to throw that out as a suggestion. I'm sure your committee's already thought about that, but just wanted to raise it. I love the project. Thank you.
Excellent. So that being said, I'd like to call for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nothing. So the motion passes 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Matt Lundberg, you up for number 9?
All right, our 9th project and our last historic preservation project is submitted from the Gloucester's Lyceum and Sawyer Free Library for Saunders House structural reinforcement. With us this evening to speak to it is Jeff Bradford, who will answer any questions after his presentation.
Thank you. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Sawyer Free Library Board of Trustees, and more specifically, the Saunders House Stewardship Committee. Our committee is responsible for the maintenance and preservation of our library's original historic home and to ensure its continued use into the future. Very briefly, the Saunders House is located on the corner of Middle Street and Dale Avenue, right over there. It was built as a private residence 12 years before the Declaration of Independence was signed. So it's a very old building. And 100 years after that, Samuel Sawyer purchased the property and deeded it in perpetuity to the Gloucester Lyceum for use as a library. The combined Lyceum and library was subsequently renamed in his honor. The Saunders House is undergoing a multi-year, multi-phase rehabilitation and preservation project. The project is in concert with, but is not connected to our larger library project that's happening next door. Once the major project is completed, the offices and administrative areas inside of the Saunders House will be moved into the new building, and this will allow Saunders to be returned to a space available for the community to use and enjoy. We have asked for and received CPA funding in the past, and we expect we'll probably be back. We've used it to restore the historic murals. We were able to replace a rotted sill on the outside of the building that could lead to major structural damage if it was not replaced. And we are about to upgrade our broken HVAC system, our boiler system, which basically has to be restarted by a city employee multiple times a week for the last several winters because it's in such poor condition. So our current CPA request is to help fund the structural reinforcement of our first floor, which is, yeah, so it's the building on the floor on the bottom left is the primary room. But basically the room has a current load bearing capacity of 17 to 27 pounds per square foot. And the current code is 100 pounds per square foot. So this will be for reinforcing the whole first floor, getting it up to modern code so that we can then continue on with our further plans of integrating with the new library and adding accessible bathrooms and a lift so that the entire building can be used accessibly for everyone going forward. So the CPA directly will support the professional services of structural engineering and architectural administration, as well as the trade services for the timber and steel framing. Our budget is around $300,000, and this will be 100,000 of that, and then 200,000 will come from additional grant money that we receive elsewhere.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. At this time, I'd like to bring in our executive director from the Sawyer Free Library, Jenny Benedict. Jenny, would you like to speak in favor?
Good evening, everyone. Absolutely. Thank you so much for considering this request, which is an important step as we move forward in returning the Saunders House for public use.
Thank you. Is there anybody else like to speak in favor? Seeing and hearing none. Is there anybody like to speak in opposition? Seeing and hearing none. Madam Clerk, is there any communications?
There was no communication on this project.
Excellent. And do we have any questions from the counselors? Seeing and hearing none. Council Memhard, do we have a motion?
Absolutely. This is our project number 9 this evening, the Saunders House structural reinforcement. The amount is $100,000. The applicant is the Gloucester Lyceum and Sawyer Free Library. Budget and Finance at our January 4th, 2024 meeting recommended on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Wardley, voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $100,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the Gloucester Lyceum and Sawyer Free Library for the purpose of supporting the preservation and restoration of the Saunders House structural reinforcement in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4766, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so the motion has been made by Councilor Memhard and seconded by Councilor Worthley. Is there any 268As with the Sawyer Free Library?
Should all be card-carrying members of the library. Sawyer Free?
It is free, Val.
All right. So with that being said, is there any discussion? Seeing no one for discussion, this will be a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All righty. Jeff, thank you very much. This passes 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Thanks. Right. Matt, we're on to number 10.
We are on to number 10. We now proceed to our affordable housing recommendations. The first is from Bigelow Real Estate, and the project is the Whistle Stop Apartments at 50R Maplewood Avenue. Speaking this evening on behalf of it is Joel Favazza. Joel?
Good evening. For the record, Joel Favazza, Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street, here on behalf of Bigelow Real Estate LLC. As was explained, we are here under the affordable housing section of the CPC funding. This is a $4+ million project. There was a request for 250 and a recommendation of 100, which is just fine. I'm happy to take that. I'd be happy to grant it. As it says in the write-up, this is going to be 30 units of housing. We're targeting workforce housing. Of the 30 units, 27 will be, they're called studio apartments, but if you look at the floor plan, you'll see that that's the location at 50R Maplewood Avenue. Oh, you didn't put them in there? All right, so fine. I sent the floor plans. So you look at the floor plans, you'll see that these studios really do function like a one bedroom. You are able to close off the bedroom. The reason they're called studios architecturally, there's a lack of a living room. So you get your separate kitchen, dining area, your separate bathroom, and your separate bedroom. It's called a studio, but it functions like a one bedroom. And then there'll be three bedroom units also. This is located on a tricky lot that has defied development for a long time, and we're excited to hopefully get this last parcel turned on in the Maplewood Ave area. It's adjacent to the MBTA. It's adjacent to the Whistle Stop Way Parking Center. It's adjacent to the McDonald's, the mill, et cetera. So we're right in the heart of it. And we're looking for a positive vote tonight. If you have any questions, I'm happy to go through it, but that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this? Bobby?
Barnaby Prendergast, 61 Fernald Street in Gloucester. There's an acute housing shortage. We need all the homes that we can get. This is a really good project in as much as it's going to provide much needed units, even if it's not everybody's cup of tea aesthetically. And I could have spoken in approving, supporting every single project that's come up this evening, but this one in particular, it's an area of the property market that is not particularly simple to turn any kind of a profit in, and it's great that we have a private investor who is prepared to take a risk. So I'm all in favor of it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Barney. Next, I'd like to bring in Sonny Robinson. Sonny, if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Sonny Robinson, 20 Harvard Street here in Gloucester. I am delighted at the opportunity to see this project moving forward and getting a award recommendation from from our CPA. This is a project I have supported from the beginning. I am delighted to see it continuing to move forward. I think, as Barnaby said, it is very important. Workforce housing in general, with the 27 units, 8 of which I believe are restricted for subsidized affordable housing, and then also 3 3-bedroom units, which create 3 lovely family units, one of which I believe is subsidized. So this project has taken a long time to move forward to this level. It's awaiting its final conservation clearing, I believe sometime towards late spring, and I hope it will be approved and moving forward, getting constructed within the next months. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sonny. Next up, I'd like to bring in Deanna Fay from our Affordable Housing Trust. Deanna, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please. You're muted, Deanna.
Not like you.
Deanna, you're still muted. All right, we'll wait for Deanna and we'll bring in Ruth Pino from the Affordable Housing Trust. Ruth, how you doing tonight? If you just give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, it's Ruth Pino. I live at 82 Wheeler Street, and I'm wholeheartedly in favor of my CPA tax dollars going towards this project. And I really commend the builder for having the bravery that he's had to go through with this project, and especially at 60%.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ruth. Deanna Fay, are you unmuted at this point? Already, with the technical difficulties, I have no problem bringing Deanna Fay back after we go for council questions. So at this point, do we have any council questions? Yeah. Is there any opposition?
Just unmuted.
Deanna, how you doing?
I think I fixed it. Can you hear me now?
Can you just give your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, it's Deanna Fay, 3 Barbary Lane.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Deanna. Go ahead.
So, first I want to give like much thanks to Matt Lundberg and all of the members of the CPC for their dedication and their thorough efforts through the application and review process for all of the applicants, but particularly for the ones that are applying for affordable housing, which is near and dear to me. I just want to express this is such a unique project for me, because in many ways, this project is the best example of what CPC funding is meant for. There's a solid primary purpose for CPA funds to be used to create affordable housing. And that's why the CPA funds can be used in such a wide range of housing activities, including new construction like this project is. This project speaks volumes to our community's commitment to address our affordable housing needs with local buy-in, utilizing one of our tools in our municipal toolbox that's designed to help us meet our goals. We don't have a lot of tools here, but this is an important one. In the case of the Maplewood project, the CPC has the opportunity to really foster new housing. We can all acknowledge how incredibly complicated developing affordable housing is to fund and to create. Typically, we see nonprofit organizations and for-profit developers doing this work because it's challenging. It requires a crazy combination of state, federal funding resources and public sector approvals. Mr. Wheat is just a local guy. He owns local land and he wants to build on it. He's not your stereotypical developer. He could have built some storage units and been done with it. But throughout the duration of this project, he's held a strong commitment to the 60% AMI affordability that goes above and beyond what's required of him. I think we should all support and encourage construction of critically needed new workforce housing and deed-restricted affordable units by committing tools like the CPA funds, particularly for local projects by local persons committed and willing to be innovative enough to build the kind of housing we actually need. So I hope that you will approve the CPC funding for this project and for all of the other applicants that are applying tonight for affordable housing. And I hope that it might encourage some additional applicants to come forward that are like-minded with housing projects by other local people. Thanks so much.
So thank you very much, Deanna. Is there anybody that'd like to speak in opposition? Hearing and seeing none, we will now move on to questions from councilors. Councilor Gross. Grow.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Thank you, Joel, for your presentation. I've got a number of questions. I just want to find out first off, where is the project in its progress right now? I understand you've gotten a comprehensive permit from the ZBA. You're dealing with the Conservation Commission. Largely, my understanding is because of the flooding and the runoff issues. But can you speak to where you are now? And then I would like you to speak, if you could, specifically to where this funding is going to be going.
Sure. So the project itself, as you mentioned, successfully went through the Zoning Board of Appeals, got a comprehensive permit. We actually just last week wrapped up at Conservation Commission, got a unanimous vote for an order of conditions for the project also. We haven't seen the actual written order come in yet, but it's on its way. And so we are now in the last few months of a 9-month stormwater drain monitoring period. One of the conditions of the comprehensive permit was that Mr. Wheat, who's here tonight, by the way, monitor stormwater flow in one of the city's drain lines that would be the ultimate receptacle of the stormwater collected on this site, and to make sure that that stormwater drain had capacity for what would be proposed to be entering it, and to also make sure that any pumping that goes from this site into that stormwater drain is pumped at the appropriate time post-storm. So that began in earnest last fall. I think it goes through end of April into May. And then provided that the data, which so far has been excellent, does not show any hiccups, we'll be looking to break ground. One of, the overall $100,000 will be, put into the project overall. However, one of the one of the first things that has to happen, and this is, it's not officially open space, but one of the first things that has to happen is that entire site is paved. There's some scrub brush growing up here and there, but that's all growing from dirt that's blown on top of pavement. And so one of the first things that happens, that site has to get cleared out. There's an old concrete pad from when you used to unload rail cars that all has to come out, and you can begin actually restoring some of the property. If you see the site plans, you'll see that in the end, right now there's 0 green space on this site. And in the end, there's, I think, 12.5 trees being planted, several grassy areas being planted. And so one of the first expenses that would come down that Mr. Wheat might look for reimbursement for would be site prep. And that site prep is both prepping for this affordable housing project and also taking a fully paved site and actually beginning to restore some green space on it.
Continue. I can come back.
Yeah,
whatever.
please. Council Worthley?
Yes, thank you. So tonight's really only voting on the CPA funding for the because of the affordability. And we don't have jurisdiction over permitting. That's a 40B and you're moving forward on that. So I just want to make sure we stay focused on what we can have influence over too. But I didn't hear, I heard Ms. Fay speak, but I didn't hear you speak about the affordability component of this, to the extent that that's what why you applied for it. I just want to hear and understand the percentages and what that means for people who might apply for that.
Sure. So when you go through a 40B process, one of the requirements is that a quarter of the units you create for housing have to be restricted as affordable. And the threshold is 80% of area mean income. So as long as you say, of the units I'm going to build, 1/4 of them will be restricted at 80% of area mean income, you meet the threshold to qualify for a 40B. Mr. Wheat has, from day one, without any push or any need to do this to compromise, has from day one said, I'm actually going to restrict down to 60% AMI. So of those 30 units going in, the 25% that'll be restricted will be restricted at 60% of the area mean income. So that's how we trigger the official capital A affordable requirement. Throughout the process, we've discussed that there's also a little a, informal affordable component, and that this is going to be, these are, modest apartments, as workforce housing, and the idea being that they're going to be, even at market, something that someone can afford to live and work in Gloucester inside, even though it's not one of the restricted units.
Thank you. I just wanted, because I know I've heard this, we're not just giving the developer money, I mean, essentially in a way that is, but we're ensuring that you're using this money to help make that 60%, make it affordable for, and is there a restriction that it needs to be for current Gloucester residents, or is there any component for that? I think there's.
The comprehensive permit doesn't have that sort of citizenship restriction in it.
Fair housing laws wouldn't allow that anyway, so okay. I have my answers,
Councilor
thank you.
Grow.
I guess one of the questions I have is that we're used to seeing projects come forward of this magnitude, this size, through nonprofit agencies that have a track history and a record of successfully completed projects. Can you speak at all to your applicants' history with this kind of development, whether they've gone through this process before? I ask because, as you mentioned yourself, this has been a tricky site to develop, and there's complications involved that have sort of, I don't say the word plagued, but plagued the project all the way through the process. And I would like to. My concern is the final end game, is the actual occupancy permits of residents being able to go into units, and I want to feel a little bit more comfortable about the track record and the success rate of the applicant moving forward. Is this project actually going to happen?
Sure. So to that, I would point out, so Mr. Wheat, although is not a traditional real estate developer, as you might think, he's a very deliberative person, and we spent years, I mean, it's been years permitting this particular project, but Mr. Wheat spent years researching construction methods, building types, potential for the site. We had, meetings going back, pre-COVID with the prior administrations. This is not, him getting out of bed one day going, I think I'll put 30 units behind my car wash, right? This has been a very deliberative process. And through that time, he has sought out help from experts in the field. So for example, the engineer for the project is Hancock Associates. Those familiar know that they do a lot of work on the North Shore with this type of development. Through the 40B process, the city also had a separate third-party engineer vetting this. So you know that As far as the site development situation, those costs and those protocols have been dialed in by experts who have been engineers on other projects before. He has spoken with the companies that are going to build the underground stormwater storage systems, and he has all the specs on those, vetted through his team also. He's spoken with the company that actually provides the components for the building. It comes in modularly, and those, again, prices established, delivery schedules established. If you let us know on this day you want them to come, here's the lead time for them to be created and shipped out to you. So this has all been thoroughly researched. Although this is the first time building something of this, he does maintain several properties in the Cape Ann area. He has several rental investment properties, so he's familiar with the Cape Ann rental market. He's familiar with being a landlord. He intends to hold this building for himself and for his kids, and so he'll be the landlord for these 30 units. And again, he also owns the adjacent property where the car wash is located now. So he's familiar with the community, he's familiar with renting the community, and where his, lack of experience in developing a site may be, he's sought out experts in the field and done research ahead of time to make sure that, he's not out over his skis. It's been a very slow, deliberative process to take as much precaution as one can, but everyone has to do something for the first time, for the first time.
I'm good for now. Thanks.
All righty. Any other councilor questions? All right, with that being said, Council Memhard, do we have a motion?
This is our project number 10 this evening, 50R Maplewood Avenue, affordable housing, Whistle Stop Apartments. Amount $100,000, and the applicant is Bigelow Real Estate LLC. Budget and Finance at our January 4th, 2024 meeting. Voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $100,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended to us by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to Bigelow Real Estate LLC for the purpose of supporting the 50R Maplewood Avenue affordable housing, Whistle Stop Apartments, and project. The appropriation will be allocated to the community housing category and funded from the unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Community Housing Projects Fund number 4908, and I so move.
Second.
Mr. President, oh, sorry.
So the motion has been made by Council Memhard and seconded by Council Worthley. We're now on to councilor discussion, and I'll start with Councilor Grow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move an amendment, please.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to appropriate CPC funding for Bigelow Real Estate LLC for the purposes described in the application and the motion, on the conditions that Bigelow Real Estate LLC shall repay the City of Gloucester the $100,000 granted if any of the following conditions occur. A building permit application for the construction of any of the units is denied. The applicant exercises any rights to appeal the denial of a building permit application, or a certificate of occupancy for the 8 affordable units is not issued within 3 years of the grant of the CPC money, and I so move.
Second.
Okay. Is there any narrative to this, Councilor?
Yep, coming from me, of all people, about my affection for affordable housing, this may seem like an odd choice, but I also have a great affection for the CPA funding and the money that we hand out for projects like this. And given the freshman status of this particular development, the issues that I know that have come up over the course of the project, I don't want perfection to be the enemy of good. And I do appreciate very much so the efforts to address the issue of 60% AMI, the permanent deed restriction when 40B only asks for 30 years. And the short-term leasing prohibition is also a great addition to this. So I do appreciate the gestures that have been going forward. This money is being given at a very early part and very early stage of the project. And as such, unlike where we might feel much more comfortable with Action Inc. or Habitat for Humanity or whatever some of the people who've had a track record, that the the uncertainty of the completion of the project is still a little bit much higher in my mind than it would be if it were one of these applicants who had, again, a track record and funding behind it. So I'm asking for essentially a little bit of insurance that the project gets done, that the occupancy permits get done, and that at that point that will satisfy the requirements of the grant of money from the city, because I think protection of the city funds on a project like this is important not only for this project but projects moving forward. So that's the justification for my amendments.
Is there any council questions for Councilor Grove's amendment? Councilor Gilman.
So I've got a question that might be through the chair to Matt Lumberg. The question is, my understanding
Yes.
was that the CPC grant does not come into effect until the time that the action has occurred. Is that correct?
That's correct. Once a grant is established and an agreement is signed between the grant recipient and the city of Gloucester, money does not transmit then. It only is given to the recipient once they've incurred an expense, been invoiced by that expense from a vendor, and then submits that invoice to the grantee. They then send that invoice to us and we pay the vendor, we the city of Gloucester.
So through the chair to the initiator of the amendment? Yes. So how does that interpretation affect your proposed amendment?
It doesn't really. I mean, I think that's great, and I think it's the way the CPC is designed to run. Again, our funding is coming in at the very earliest stages of this project, and while it's very possible that that entire project, that part of the project gets completed, there may be issues down the road that come up that cause the problem to be delayed or abandoned or changed into another kind of project. I'm just asking that if that's the case, if that happens, if there's anything that future tense causes the problem not to produce the affordable units that we are looking for them to provide, that the city can be reimbursed for those costs. If they provide the 8 affordable units, the 60% AMI, that's awesome. That's the end result we all want to do. But I'm just putting a little bit of a tag on the ambiguity of whether or not this project will actually fully be realized.
Thank you.
Excellent. Council Worthley.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions on the amendment, and I like where you're going with this. So firstly, and I don't know if Kenny Costa's on the call, but we have a very specific language on Community Preservation Act motions, and then, I don't know if I'm amending it with, like, maybe it needs to be a second motion versus an amendment. I don't know how that would work, but I don't want there to be any hang up on the Community Preservation Act side to say, well, because we get audited from the state on this money, we can't pay this because there's an amendment that's not the language that Kenny provided to us at budget for it. So I'm not.
I can address that?
Yeah, sure.
If you don't mind. I did actually have a conversation with the legal department about this.
Okay,
And this
good.
was the amendment that was recommended. In fact, the original amendment said described in the application, and I said as an amendment and the language that's in the motion that was read.
I didn't know
So,
you would check with
yeah,
that. Okay.
so I wanted to make sure that that was included in that.
Yep. And then could we have the motion read again, just because it was quick to process all that at
Sure.
once?
I move to appropriate CPC funding for Bigelow Real Estate LLC for the purposes described in the application and in the motion previously read, on the condition that Bigelow Real Estate LLC shall repay the city of Gloucester the $100,000 granted if any of the following conditions occur. A building permit application for the construction of any of the units is denied. The applicant exercises any rights to appeal the denial of a building permit application, or a certificate of occupancy for the 8 affordable units is not issued within 3 years of the grant of the CPC money.
Just if I may continue on the questions. I don't know if 3 years is realistic based on all of the obstacles that the project's going to have to get to the point of occupancy. It seems like a long ways away, but I don't know how long this will take. Second thing is if the property owner would ever sell the property, we would probably still want to get the funds back from the next person that would own it potentially, not trying to manifest any sale, but just that's something we should probably consider because it's not, the money's going to the entity, but it's also the address is where the money's going to, right? And then, denial of occupancy on the affordable housing, affordable units. Anything could affect that, right? We don't even have a building inspector right now. Like there are things that could, from the city side, that could also hold that up. And I just want to make sure we're not, I actually will be voting for it once we get this stuff sorted out. I wonder if we're kind of squeezing the developer in a way that he doesn't have control over either 3 years or building inspector doesn't get an occupancy permit, those sorts of things. So I just wanted to pause before we vote and maybe think that through a little bit, if that's fair. And I'd be happy, although I don't know if it's appropriate completely, but to have legal counsel for the developer to opine on this.
One thing to clear up, we do have an acting building inspector and an assistant building inspector. So it's not, we don't have a building inspector. We do have an acting building inspector and an assistant. And I wouldn't defer to the applicant's legal on any decisions or any information that you would use to make your decision. I defer to our own legal on this, and it has been gone through legal for what Councilor Grow has presented to us as something that's being acceptable. So I think we should ask if there's any other questions from any other councilors at this point.
So my question's still on the table. If there is no answer, it's not answerable, that's okay. If you don't want to ask the applicant's attorney, that I understand.
I have no problem asking the applicant's attorney a question. I just don't want his legal advice.
Again, from a city council perspective.
Perhaps the
Okay.
question could be re-answered.
Nothing personal.
Is it typical in legal property transfers that the obligations of that property transfer to the new owner?
So to that question, if you have permitting runs with the land, right? This sounds more like a contractual between an entity being the LLC and the city of Gloucester. So I think that there may be some successor and assigns language. Bigelow Realty LLC and its successors and assigns shall repay. If I may, my only concern was one of the cases was denial of a building permit for any reason. So his builder submits the wrong site plan, it gets denied, rejected back out. Now he owes $100,000. I understand the intent, but I'm just curious. I'm concerned if a building permit is denied or if he exercises his appeal. There's a code question. Building inspector says the window should be X inches off the floor. Architect says no, they can be Y inches off the floor. And there's an appeal relating to where the windows are going to go. Does that trigger the $100,000 repayment? So I don't think, again, I'm not trying to look a gift horse in the mouth here. Happy to take reasonably conditioned free money. Thank you very much. But I would just ask that be dialed in a little more to be more of a final, if a building permit is not obtained, right? Not just denied, because you can be denied several times and then finally get your permit when you get your act together, right? So I'd hope you'd consider conditions that have more finality, not one strike, you're out. Just if you don't pull it off, give us the money back, please.
Council President, I had one other question, a follow-up, but I don't want to interrupt whatever flow you had going.
Yeah, go ahead, Council Worthley.
Does the CPA have the capacity to receive money back that is given out from an applicant, right? So you get your money from the state and from the city, but can you take a check?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
There have been previous occasions where that has happened, but because it's CPA acquired funds, it has to go back into the CPA fund that it came from, not the general CPA fund, but in this case, the community housing fund.
Okay, thank you.
Still on.
Can I ask Councilor Favazza to repeat what you said about the building permit not being denied, but failed to get a building?
If a building permit is not obtained for this project, Or you could, again, or if a building permit is obtained for a project that does not include, 8 units of affordable housing at 60% AMI, right? So if he goes and says, oh, I went and I got housing, but it's only 5 townhouses, you go, well, that's a building permit, but it's the wrong building permit.
I would be willing to amend this to lose the language that says if any of the following conditions, not if any of the, a building permit application for the construction of any of the units is not, what's the word? Obtained,
Is not obtained. If a building permit is not obtained.
and lose the applicant exercise any rights of appeal. I did, when I talked to Suzanne, she was flexible about that language. The main operative issue here is the certificate of occupancy for the affordable units. And so I'd be willing to change that to move to appropriate CPC funding for Bigelow Real Estate LLC for the purposes of described in the application, and the motion is made on the condition that Bigelow Real Estate LLC shall repay the city of Gloucester the $100,000 granted if the following any of the following conditions occur: a building permit is not obtained for the project, or a certificate of occupancy for the 8 affordable units is not issued within 3 years of the grant of CPC money. And I'm assuming 3 years is a reasonable period of time for a project of this size.
Yeah, 3 years is okay on that. Would you want to tag that same 3 to the building permit? There probably needs an end date on that building permit also.
Well, if you don't get the certificate of occupancy on the affordable units in the 3 years, it doesn't matter.
That's fine too.
So would you accept that as a recharacterization of my amendment?
Second.
Okay, so, good. Are you good with it, Joanne? Do you have that?
Okay, so we have a motion on the table for an amendment. And so this vote would be for the amendment, and this will be a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so the amendment passes 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. And now to the main motion, which is going to have the addition of what Jason has just done. I don't know if Scott, you like to read the main motion.
Kind of replaced.
It replaces, okay. Yep, not a problem.
Mr. President, I forgot one thing. There was a suggestion that maybe we say, or their assignees, if there was a sale of the property. Do we need to?
Contract language.
I'm all right with
Okay.
what's in front of us.
Okay.
I think
And I believe that in my opinion, this is nothing against the applicant.
Not at all.
I believe that you have a target and you've got a good stand in the community and you run well properties. It's just, we have gotten a lot of concerns about the $100,000. I understand where it's going, and I understand we're benefiting far greater for what you're willing to do for the community. But we have to also let other people know that we're watching the money with due diligence. And this is absolutely nothing personal. And to me, you're a hero in the world of affordable housing for what you're going to do for us. So with that being said, would we like to just vote on the motion, the amended motion? Councilor Gilman.
Yes, I'd just like to add something to the discussion before we vote. So one of the things that a respected member of the Affordable Housing Trust keeps reminding me is that they're developers and builders. And I would thank Mr. Wheat because he's looking at this clearly from a building standpoint. And that means that your intentions are really to help people, 8 units, and a deeded in perpetuity opportunity at 60%, and then the rest at market value. And that's very appreciated. So I just wanted to say that before the vote. So thank you.
Councilor Grow.
I'd like to just add, and Mr. Wheat, since you're here in the audience, and I would like to reiterate what has been said. This is not a personal affront to you. I see this as a critically important project in the sense that if things go well, if things are successful, if everything comes out the way it does, it bolsters the landscape for more such projects. And we desperately need projects like this to come forward. I wasn't a fan of it when I first heard of it, the location and the issues that went on with it, but you're clearly making an effort to help us address the affordability focus on this, and I'm very grateful for that. But I'm also, I'm keenly aware that if this fails, it will be held up as a failure, and that will cause greater problems for future projects. So that's my viewpoint is long-term, is this going to be successful? If it's not, I want to make sure that the limited funds that we have available for CPA funding for affordable housing go to projects that are ultimately successful. So I wish you all the best in the world to get this thing through, and I'm looking forward to seeing opening day.
Excellent. Hold on one second. Our city auditor does have his hand up. Kenny Costa, how you doing tonight?
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Does Councilor Grove's motion replace the main motion?
Yes.
The only thing I would recommend to add would just be the last two sentences from the original motion, because we do need to identify where the funding is coming from. So from where the last two sentences where it says the appropriation will be allocated to the community preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Community Housing Projects Fund 4908. That's important to be included in the motion. I just wanted to make sure that language will be included.
That'll be included. Thank you very much, Kenny.
Thank you.
Councilor Worthley.
Yeah, I think on that, I think you said as read. By Council
Did,
member,
yeah.
right. So I had a comment. I lost my train of thought though. So firstly, the 60% AMI, you are going above and beyond, and I want to express appreciation. That's money out of your pocket, essentially. You didn't have to do that. You weren't coerced into it. You weren't forced to. You weren't, just that whole process speaks to something other than just building and making money. So I want to commend you and appreciate that. You have an excellent attorney. I think you know that. And I know this process isn't done yet, and there's still more to come in terms of permitting, but you're almost there. And I give you credit for stick-to-itiveness. Is that the right phrase to see it to its fruition? And also CPC, right? So, there's a couple ways we look at this, but we're literally helping to fund directly with taxpayer money affordable housing. This is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of accomplishing affordable housing. So it fits the category for the CPC perfectly. And I thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Worthley. So that being said, are we ready to, I believe we don't need to read it because it's as read and as done. The language was still carried in there with the funding sources. So this, would you like to read it again just to be there, or do you want to go on to a voice vote?
I'm fine.
You good? All righty. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All righty. So that motion passes 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Thank you, Joel, and thank you very much for all the work you guys are doing. So, Matt, we are on to number 11.
We are. Number 11 is from the YMCA of the North Shore Incorporated. The project is the 67 Middle Street Affordable Housing Project. Speaking to this will be Jamie McGrath, and she is remote, I believe. If you have her, Joanne, great. I will turn this over to Jamie.
Hello, and thank you so much, Matt. My name is Jamie McGrath. I'm the Vice President of Project Management for the YMCA of the North Shore. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present our affordable housing project at 67 Middle Street in Gloucester. We're thrilled because this is our third project in Gloucester, and this happens to be the site of our very first affordable housing project for our organization. Our property currently has about 22 single-room occupancy units. These units share kitchens and bathrooms, and the property also has a 1-bedroom manager's unit. Our project is going to expand our housing capacity to 28 studio apartments. Each apartment will feature its own kitchen and bathroom, doubling the overall square footage to provide a more spacious and comfortable environment for our residents. The motivation behind this expansion draws from valuable lessons learned during recent challenges, particularly the lovely pandemic that we just went through. We recognize the importance of providing individuals with their own living spaces, offering a sense of security and isolation if ever needed. In addition to the new living spaces, we'll actually be adding a laundry room and community room in the basement. These spaces will provide a gathering space for residents, creating a sense of community that goes beyond the walls of their apartments. We also plan to upgrade the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing features with an effort to achieve Energy Star compliance. Most importantly, along with the construction updates, we're pleased to introduce a resident service coordinator role to this property. This is actually following a successful model that we implemented at one of our similar properties in Beverly. This role is pivotal in providing support to our residents, addressing various aspects of their daily lives, from job searches, insurance matters, transportations, food insecurity, you name it, this person can be there for our residents on a daily basis. From a timeline perspective, we've submitted our application to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities in December, and we hope to hear back sometime this spring regarding project approval. Having support from the local community is a key component of these applications, and your approval of this funding, along with the comprehensive permit already approved by the zoning board and any other funding requests that we ask for in the future, will help support this approval from EOHLC. We are hopeful that if we are approved, construction can begin later this year or early next year. This project represents more than just an expansion and renovation to 67 Middle Street. This has really laid the foundation for our why into entering and providing affordable housing to those that need it most. We are very grateful for the partnership we have with the City of Gloucester and the entire community for their support, and we thank you so much for your consideration of our funding request.
Excellent. Thank you, Jamie. So is there anybody else that would be speaking in favor? And I'm assuming that Barnaby Prendergast would like to speak in favor.
So you're going to hear from me again, basically just say this is great. It's an investment in Gloucester, Gloucester residents, Gloucester's future. So great. Thank you.
Thank you, Barnaby. Next up, I'd like to bring in Sonny Robinson. Sonny, how you doing? Again, your address and your name, please.
So Sonny Robinson, 20 Harvard Street here in Gloucester. And I am delighted to support this project also. I have been familiar with this building in its SRO capacity for many years, both during my years at the health department and then at the North Shore Health Project, and providing some services and supports to the residents. I think the moving forward from SROs with just shared kitchen space, shared bathroom space, to studio apartments with everybody having their own kitchen and bathroom space is absolutely terrific. It is a terrific modernization and upgrade of this building. I think one of the other things that the applicant deserves a lot of credit for is being very aware of the need, if the current residents of the SRO need assistance in finding housing while the renovations occur. The applicant is committed to seeing that that happens and then providing those persons first access back to the studio apartments when they're completed if they want. So as a taxpayer in this community, I am delighted to see CPA funds going to support such a very important and affordable project here in our community.
Sonny, thank you very much. Next up, we have Ruth Pino.
Hello, everyone. This is Ruth Pino again from 82 Wheeler Street. This is another good use of CPA funds. We are blessed to have the YMCA invest so much in Gloucester. And this project particularly will bring much needed affordable housing for elders in the downtown. And in the downtown, we'll have people on Main Street doing business, having lunch. And I think it's just a wonderful project.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruth, very much. Next, we have Deanna Fay. Deanna, if you could just introduce yourself and address again, please.
Hi, Deanna Fay, 3 Barbary Lane. Again, I just want to speak out and say that this is an excellent use of CPA funding for the affordable housing category. I 100% support this project and all of the work that the YMCA is doing for housing currently. SROs are critically important for the residents that live there. It can be just a stable home is just core to everything. So I wholeheartedly support this project and I urge you to vote yes. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Deanna Fay. Is there anybody else to speak in support? Rebecca, would you like to speak in favor?
Rebecca.
Can you hear us, Rebecca?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, this is Joanne Castano,
Oh,
Manship.
sorry, Joanne.
That's okay. We share our Zoom, Manship artist, and as an artist in the community and knowing how much housing that we do need, I know that Barnaby and Ruth and Sunny have been working so hard to get us, the more housing we have, the better off the whole community is. So I support all of the housing units that are being proposed here and for the use of our citizens' money. It's an investment in the community. And as an artist, our artists need more space as well, and we want to keep them here. So those that are low income or moderate income, no matter what we do to bring housing in, it's such a benefit to the community and we need it more than ever. So I thank you all for considering all of these proposals. Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank you. Could we just get your address for the record?
6 Old Bray Street in Gloucester.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anybody like to speak in opposition? Seeing none. Is there any communications, Madam Clerk?
There are no communications.
Is there any questions from the council? Councilor Grow.
Yeah, can you speak to the affordability component of this particular project? Is this 100% affordable units? What the threshold is?
Yep. Yes, it's 100% affordable units at 30% AMI, and everyone that will be brought in are formerly homeless individuals.
Did you say formerly homeless?
Formerly homeless.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
great.
Thank you.
I know that SRO units by definition are single resident occupancy. Will couples be allowed to occupy these studio apartments?
No, unfortunately, the restrictions prohibit us from having couples in the studios. It's only one person in each apartment.
Well, thank you. Is there any other council questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Yes, indeed. So this is project number 11 tonight. And it's at 67 Middle Street for the affordable housing. The Patillo building, and the amount is $100,000, and the applicant is YMCA of the North Shore. Budget and Finance in our January 4th, 2024 meeting on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley, voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $100,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to YMCA of the North Shore, Inc., for the purpose of supporting the 67 Middle Street affordable housing, Patillo building, and project. The appropriation will be allocated to the community housing category and funded from the Community Housing Reserve Fund 4530. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Community Housing Projects Fund, Fund number 4909, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so the motion has been made by Councilor Memhard and seconded by Councilor Worthley. Do we have any councilor discussion on this? Councilor Gilman.
I look at this as a complete no-brainer. It's really important to us, and all the Ts and Cs have been worked out, and I'm going to be supporting this. Thank you.
Councilor Grow?
Yeah, I really appreciate this project moving forward, and I appreciate the fact that you're going from 21, 22 SROs to 28 studio apartments, because I think while SRO units are great for getting people, off the street and into housing, having a studio apartment that is, your space, your home, your kitchen, your bathroom, is just miles above the initial phase of getting off the street. So I really see this as a great benefit, not only just for the fact that we have more units, but also that they're more constructed to the idea of actually being a home. And I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you, Councilor Grow. Any other councilor discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So this passes 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you so much.
And now we're on to project number 12, Matt.
Project number 12 is an application from Action Incorporated for their tenant-based rental and mortgage assistance program. Joining us remotely is Karen Clifford, who will speak to the project, and I turn it over to Karen.
Hello, I am Karen Clifford from the Director of Community Services at Action. The Rental and Mortgage Assistance Program at Action helps renters and homeowners who have gotten behind on their payments and or those who know they will have trouble paying in the immediate future. Many renters are having a very hard time with the increased rental prices in the area. If they miss work without time off benefits, have unexpected expenses, or have lost their job, it's very hard to catch up when rent is a huge portion of your take-home pay. Some renters are paying over half of their income to their housing costs, which makes it hard if there are any hiccups causing them to get behind. Since rent is such a big portion of their income, it's hard for many households to save for the future. Frequently, our clients get behind on their rent because of obstacles like job loss, extra medical expenses, and missed child support payments. The same happens to those making mortgage payments. Unexpected expenses cause a household to get behind. We also find that those making mortgage payments often have a lower payment than the average rent in the area. So if they lose their home, they might be paying more for rent than they would be for their mortgage, further stressing their budget. To assist people for the future, we require a budget to be written out, hoping that the client will find areas of their budget where they can save money. The navigator can also suggest how they can manage their budget to maximize their income. We ensure that all who are eligible have applied for SNAP and fuel assistance in an effort to tap into any other financial assistance. We also have an awesome financial empowerment coordinator who can guide them in budgeting as well as offer financial classes that prepare them for success. Action is always grateful for the continued support from the CPA and City Council. We have been able to help so many households stay in their home and their community and look forward to assisting more families in the future.
Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that'd like to speak in favor? Seeing and hearing none. Oh. Sorry, Sonny, if you could just introduce yourself and your address, please.
Sonny Robinson, 20 Harvard Street. Again, this is another way to go about helping the affordable housing needs of our community. And I strongly support this as well as all the other wonderful things that Action does to try to help people who need housing find the housing that they need and secure it. So I am very glad again to see CPA money going to support this other way of going about tenant assistance. Thank you very much for the opportunity for comments on all of these projects tonight.
Excellent. Thank you, Sonny. Next up, we have Deanna Fay. Deanna, if you could just introduce yourself and your address again, please.
Hi, it's Deanna Fay again, 3 Barbary Lane. Yeah, I just want to sort of reiterate my remarks that, the CPC is is a tool that our municipality has to combat our housing issues. People that are, at risk because of the cost of housing and other conditions, we have this tool to help them. So I definitely support using CPA funds for Actions program for the tenant-based rental mortgage assistance. And so much love goes out and gratitude goes out to Action Inc. for their safety net measures that they cast across our entire community. So I urge you to vote yes again for this project. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Deanna Fay. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor? Ruth Pino, if you could give your name and address, please, again for the record.
Yes, it's Ruth Pino of 82 Wheeler Street, and I believe in everything that Sunny and Deanna just said. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruth. Is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none and hearing none, Madam Clerk, has there been any communications?
There is no communication on this project.
All right. Is there any questions from the counselors? Seeing none. Counselor Memhard, do we have a motion?
Of course, thank you. On a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley, Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $150,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding for the purpose of Action Inc.'s tenant-based rental mortgage assistance program. The appropriation will be allocated to the community housing category and funded from the unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Community Housing Projects Fund, Fund number 4904, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so the motion has been made by Councilor Memhard and seconded by Councilor Worthley. Do we have any councilor discussion? Councilor Worthley.
Yes, thank you. I've said this before, there's a lot of organizations that do yeoman's work on helping the poorest and the most struggling populations in our community, but I think it's safe to argue that none does more, no organization does more than Action does, helping so many people for so long in so many different ways. I said at the Budget and Finance Committee, if the Community Preservation Committee had the funds and they recommended this money with another 0 added to the end of it, I would say yes. So the need is that great. I know people who benefited from this personally. I know a lot of people still need this help, and Karen, you guys do such great work. I just want to commend you and thank you again for this.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Worthley. Councilor Grow.
I want to reflect on what Councilor Worthley just said and say that, Action Inc. is one of those organizations that, you might live your entire life and not know existed in Gloucester, but when you needed it, it was going to be there, and it has saved countless people in all sorts of ways, from housing assistance, rental assistance, mortgage assistance, heating assistance. It's literally kept the heat on in the winter for people, including my brother. So it's an incredibly important component of Gloucester's structure, and I really appreciate the work that they do. The second thing I'd like to say, just because we're going to run out of time, I just want to say thanks to Matt Lundberg and to the entire CPC for what is an arduous process in giving away money, but you do it well. You take the time and the energy and the effort to make sure these projects are meaningful and substantive to the community. And I, for one, am very grateful for all the time that you put into it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And I'll pass that along to the committee.
All right, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll call for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the ayes have it, 7 in favor, 2 absent, 0 opposed. Matt, thank you very much for your work and the committee's work. And I'd like to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Next order of business is for council vote, public hearing 2023-054, City Council Order number 2023-041 to amend Gloucester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 21, Street Sidewalks and Other Public Places by adding a new Article 5 entitled Petition for Alteration of Private Way. This was City Charter 211C, Councilor Worthley. It's continued from February 27th, and it's going to be continued to March 26th, 2024.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next order of business.
Also a request to the mayor, and you have about 15 minutes, or else do you have to extend the meeting?
Yes. So we'll start with, we'll go by roll call.
For the sake of time, I will just email the mayor my request. Thank you.
Councilor Memhard.
Likewise, the mayor, when he returned from his vacation, time away, checked in with me, and I was able to update him on a number of concerns from constituents in Ward 1, and we're all good.
Excellent. Same as myself, I will email the mayor to save time. Then we'll move on to Councilor Worthley.
Yes, I will be quick. Firstly, the O'Malley School Academy Drama Club had their production this past weekend and the weekend before that. My daughter was in the musical. She was one of the leads, one of the performances. I'm continually impressed with this group because they got 110 kids involved in the same production. And it's just mind-boggling to have all these kids running around and knowing exactly where they're supposed to go, and no one gets hurt and no one collides, and kids really benefit from it, and they put on a fantastic show. I also, though, sent an email. The mayor did attend one of these. I think Councilor Gilman may have attended one of the productions. I saw that. But, I shouldn't say but, and I sent an email to the mayor, and this happens not only at drama productions, but also at hockey games. People park in the fire lane as they come around, the cafeteria side of the O'Malley School is. And I've raised this with the principal. I sent this email to the mayor, to Mike Hale, and to fire chief and the superintendent of schools. I didn't get a reply, not knocking anybody. I just want to I want to put on record that all these parents, aunts and uncles and grandparents are going to support their kids. And some of them are parking in a fire lane that makes it unsafe for the people in the auditorium. So I just want to draw attention to that and see if there's a better way with signage or paint or whatever to really emphasize that. Thank you.
Excellent. Councilor Gilman.
I have two very quick things. A reminder that tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30 is training for boards and commissions here at Kairos. And the other thing is I wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow night at what?
Senior Center.
Oh, sorry. It's at the Rose Baker. Thank you for the correction. And the other thing I want to mention is that tomorrow night at 7 at the Charlaloo Music Center in Rockport, two of our students from Gloucester High, well, one is currently a sophomore, Esme Saroof, and Elijah Saroof, who's now a freshman at UMass Amherst, also a GHS grad. They're both musicians, and they're putting on Jazz for a Cure. And there's a $10 request for a donation if you can afford that. And they're partnering with the Rockport Middle School Jazz Band as well. So it's the Gloucester High Jazz Band along with the middle school band. And I'm really proud of all these students. And it's kind, it's empathetic, and it really says a lot. So anyway, for those of you that could be there, please be there. Thank you.
Councilor Grace.
To show and students are proud of them. And on Saturday, I attended the thing for the comprehensive plan. There were, several people here, not nearly enough as should be here. Sat with my pal Barnaby over there, I think that we need to collectively kind of put our heads together and find a way, make a way, create a way to get more young people involved in the comprehensive plan in all of this. There was zero representation for any of the younger generations there, and anything and everything that we are doing right now, they are inheriting. And we really, I don't have the answer, but we need to brainstorm on how to get some of these, more young kids involved in the comprehensive plan and in everything that's going forward in the city. I think it's important.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Grace. Councilor Grow.
Good, thank you very.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second, I'm sorry. I made it. Got me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Look at Barnaby go.